finally begin the second year. During the first year, our characters went through both mental and physical battles, and this year, it isn't slowing down one bit. So, more special exams, more drama, and hell, a shit ton more fights. Trust me, a shit ton more fights. It's gonna be wild. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka has one goal in mind, to get rid of Sekishiro. To do that, he would have to find one student, that student belonging to the White Room. If he is to do this by the end of April, then Sekishiro will leave, and that boy will be able to live his normal life once again. Or will he? Now, ask a question. Are y'all ready? If so, let's get into the second year. We begin the second year with a meeting from 2 months ago, from none other than the man Sekishiro. He talks about Ayanokoji and a mission to get him expelled. The one who was listening was a 15-year-old teenager who would be enrolled into the high school come the start of the second year. Now, in this translation, the White Room student's gender has not actually been confirmed, so for now, they're just referring to them as a male. So if I ever mention the White Room student and I say he, it's because at this moment in time at least, the gender is not confirmed. So just keep mind of that. Because you mentioned they can't wait any longer, but he also tells the student to act smart, as they don't want anything going public. The student raised his hand and asked Sekishiro if he meant not to stand out carelessly. Yes, he replied, adding he will back him up as much as he can, but Sakinagi's faction will start to act more, so they can't act carelessly. The child was getting a good grasp of the situation, but Sekishiro actually saw a different story in the boy's face. That one of dissatisfaction from the task he was given. When Kiyotaka left the White Room, the activities were put to a halt. For students who grew up there, this was almost like a blessing. Like, could you imagine like being in the White Room, getting forced to do this, like living there every day? But for students who didn't live there, you know, they had the choice to go there. Like, when they could have just stayed home, I guess, one day. I'm not too sure. With these students, they grew to hate the man Kiyotaka, almost to the point where it couldn't be suppressed anymore. There's one thing I forgot to confirm, Sekishiro said, as the boy was leaving. He asked a question. You didn't hide anything from me, did you? The boy gave a nod with his back still turned, and with that, he left. We then get a recap and explanation, like a really long recap and explanation, almost on the first year and how the system works, with the points, everything really going into that. But since you guys already really know that, I get like the easy job and I can skip past this today. But it's really not too important because it just pretty much recaps it, so it's fine. If you wish to know the class standings at the end of year 2, then make sure you check out my last video in this playlist above in the right corner. Now, let's continue. The first day of the second year now arrives. On this day, all the students will be leaving the classroom they've been so familiar with and go to another. At first glance, the new room seems the same, from the chairs, desks, and even the plain walls. But somehow, Kiyotaka thought it was pretty different. First thing everyone did when they got in the room was wait and see the message displayed on the blackboard. That message? Please wait in the same seats as the previous year. The thing is, you couldn't really call this a blackboard anymore, but more of a black screen, because it was now replaced with a large electric monitor. If you guys had that in like high school or something, or whatever, it's pretty much like a smartboard. Like, that's really what it is. Kiyotaka sat down in his old seat with some excitement, only to be let down with the same old view as last year. When the time comes, the opening ceremony will be held in the gymnasium. And after that, the teachers will explain the necessary preparations for this year, lasting 2 hours, then the class will be dismissed in the morning. Yo, as Kiyotaka was on his phone while sitting, he was called out by someone to his right. He thought there was no way Horikita would say the words, yo. It was Akito of the Ayanokoji group. He was worried as Kiyotaka didn't show up to the group chat during spring break much. Even Kiyotaka knew this fact himself. Akito went to state saying there's no rules he should be present, but it wouldn't really hurt to hang out with everyone a lot more, and added ID was really worried during the break too. Kiyotaka says sorry, and from now on he's going to show his face. That's okay, replied Akito, saying he too missed Kiyotaka. See, we got the little bit bromance here. You love to see it. You do love to see it. To where Kiyotaka had a thought, saying when a friend says that, it feels a little bit more painful, but still, he felt no guilt here. Kiyotaka thought back to last year where every student had 100,000 private points and how they spent all of it in the first month. He knew this year would be important to see how much they improved to increase class points. All of a sudden, he can hear the voice of a cheerful girl greeting her friends. That girl being Karuizawa Kei, who is now Kiyotaka's girlfriend. All of a sudden, there was a surprised voice that resounded throughout the whole classroom. When Kiyotaka looked up, he immediately understood the reason for the surprise. It was almost natural seeing the sudden change of classmates' appearance. The female student who was attracting all the attention was none other than Horikita Suzune. Long, beautiful black hair of hers is now gone and was now replaced with shoulder-length hair. Even shorter than that. Horikita had now broke away from her past, and to show this, she cut her hair. Suzune, your hair. What's happened to your hair? It was Suda who shouted after seeing this. After all, he's the one who fell in love with her. But it wasn't just him. Horikita-san, I wouldn't have imagined this right. I was so surprised when I saw you. This was Kushida. I wonder, is it that strange I cut my hair? Horikita then asked. They both said it was nice, and Suda really wanted to know, so we asked why. Let's just say it was a broken heart, and so on. Horikita's answer was vague. a broken heart? Said Suda. She didn't put it in more accurate terms, saying it was a declaration of independence. Well, I guess that's true. There's no way you can have a broken heart, would you? Suda says as he breaks into a cold sweat. Kushida then stated she would grow out her hair. The reason for this is that she was probably actually annoyed about having the same exact length hair as Horikita now. Even Kiyotaka was worried about the raging feelings inside of her as of this moment. We now skip a few days and the weekend has now passed. It is now Monday. There were major changes in the school. Up until now, the students would use textbooks, but everything was updated to somewhat of a tablet, like an iPad pretty much, meaning all their content was now virtual. With that also comes a high-speed charging device installed at the rear end of the classroom to prevent the tablets from running out of battery in the middle of class. Apart from the digitization of study materials, the only other thing what was changed was the seating plan in class. Kiyotaka mentioned that you were able to use points to pick your seating position, but he didn't want to anyway. He once sat at the back again, but not next to the window. He was now at the back next to the hallway. Kiyotaka then thought he hasn't talked to anyone in another year since last year, and the only time he did was when he had to ask about an exam. All of a sudden, Chabashira-sensei comes into the classroom. She looks serious. "Sensei, is there a special exam?" It was Ike who asked Chabashira. He noticed a serious expression. Damn, like, Ike did something smart for once. Maybe the second year is like, where I start liking Ike. You never know. Chabashira made an announcement that was said to be important for the future of their school lives. She told everyone to take out their phones and put it on the desk, and mentioned if anyone forgot their phone, then to go back to their dorm and get it instantly. Luckily, everyone had their phone on them. Chabashira began to talk and asked them to access the school's website in order to install a new app. That being the Overall Ability app, shortened for OAA. She asked anyone if they don't understand them to raise their hands. She mentioned all classes would be doing this and to start up the app without wasting time. They then had to scan their student ID cards that had their name and all the information on it. They did that and they scanned it on the phone's camera. All the data was there. When logged in, you can see the many interactable items listed in the main menu of the app. It contained personal data for all students of all grades too. For example, if you had to click on class 2D, then all the students' names would be shown in alphabetical order. Then a total of 39 portraits will be shown. Kiyotaka then tapped his name first. It displayed a face portrait, his name, class, and a lot more pieces of information what no one would expect. Showing some results seen on the screen. I could sort of relate this to, like, in the first few volumes, if you guys have read them. We had, like, these images where, you know, it would show everybody's type of data and some facts about them. This was, like, in the first 3-4 volumes. So it was sort of like that. Chabashira stated that these were individual results based on the first year, and it is possible to view anyone's class in any year. The role of this app was to get a grip of everyone's abilities in a numerical form. But there's a question mark button in the corner. Kiyotaka pressed this and it explained how every score was calculated. First, academic ability, what's calculated from scores and written tests. Physical ability calculated from the evaluation of the individual strength in PE and other areas, for example, sports festival. Then came critical thinking, calculated from how capable the individual can adapt to the society, such as the number of friends they have. That's kind of like depressing. Could you imagine like if you're alone, not like Kiyotaka obviously at first, like, you know, it was just like critical thinking level F, you have no friends, like stuff like that. That'd be pretty depressing. Social contribution calculated for various factors such as the attitude of all students during the class and absences. And finally, overall strength was calculated from the 4 aspects listed above. Kiyotaka thought about this and mentioned his ability to think is lower than other aspects, which should be convincing enough to cover hiding his abilities in the process. Chabashira mentioned that today onwards, the app's data will be updated along with class points. She then said Tsudo's academic ability is grade E and mentioned that it isn't a shiny grade to show anyone. God, why did she do my voice Tsudo like this? Like, why couldn't she go for like Ike instead? Come on, Sensei. But mentioned if he got a perfect result in his next test, then his grade would go up to A. The reason for this was everything in the app right now was based on the previous year. But from this moment onwards, everything would just be for this year. So if I were to ace an exam, the first exam this year, and get an A, my overall grades would be an A+. Something like that, if you guys understand. Sensei explained social contribution is based on the students' morals and manners and their attitude towards teachers, and even their presence in class. This is a skill that cannot be gained overnight, just like from the others doing a test. Let's take Hirato, for example. You know, he was almost friendly and nice guy in class, but one day he became a walking corpse almost and rejected anyone in front of him. He put on them black Air Forces and went for Michan. But after a while, he recovered, and his social contribution seems to be fine. Sensei also mentioned this app is equal, and class standings won't affect it. There was also a sorting function by strength. At the top came Hirato, who had fairly good results. On the other hand, Kiyotaka searched from low to high, and it was Ike who came out on the top. Yes, sir, it's at the bottom. That's right. It wasn't just Ike, though. It was actually Sakura ID too, both having an overall strength of 37. Even Tsudo was above a fair few students with an overall grade of 47, due to his physical rating of A+. Sensei mentioned this app can make them aware of their performances and even change their bad habit. And she thinks in a year from now, if students are lower than a certain standard, then they may be given a penalty. She said if they are dissatisfied and convinced the school they aren't as low as they think. and added that the school system was conceived by the student council president, Miyabi Nagamo. Kiyotaka stated Nagamo's dream of creating a school where everyone's abilities can be evaluated had finally been officialized, and this first step probably took a lot of time and effort as he'd been making small movements since the beginning of last year. Pseudo then shouted all of a sudden, saying it doesn't make sense how his common sense is lower than Konji's. Kiyotaka then went and checked Konji's evaluation as he blocked his ear to avoid Pseudo's loud shouting. And what Pseudo said was actually true. Konji usually gives off unusual behavior and abilities in class and exams, is somehow highly regarded for his academic and physical ability. I don't really care all that much, your physical ability is higher after all, Konji said, not even showing a hint of envy having a lower physical ability rating than Pseudo. Now the reason Konji had a higher overall score than Pseudo was because he didn't cause much trouble as him. And even if he did, his actions were well hidden. Well, if you take Pseudo for example, when he rages, he sort of takes it up on the stage in front of everyone. Kiyotaka thought to himself in the entire year he feels Konji has changed for the least. He then thought about everyone's growth throughout the year and wondered what it would be. And then said to himself he isn't even worried about Ike. I mean, like, I don't blame him, I wouldn't be. And Airi for the time being too. Only time would tell their stories. The second hour of class then came and Chabashiro went to explain the special exam. She mentioned in this special exam, first years and second years would be partnered up together. All of those things Nagamo was hinting at is really coming to fruition now, huh? In this special exam, written exam and communication skills would be greatly tested. Then Chabashiro went to explain that within a day-to-day life employment, it would be strange to not interact with your kohai. And explain further, there'll be times in the future where they'll be competing against the third and first years. This time is about working together. This will greatly help in a real-life situation. Going back to the point where you work with kohais in a real-life environment, Chabashiro really wanted the students to know this isn't anything out of the ordinary. And everything is done to prepare them for the future when they aren't in education anymore. Instead of this exam will basically be an improved version of the paper shuffle exam, but instead of teaming with your classmate, you'll be teaming with a first year. They have the exam at the end of the month, so around 2 weeks. Kiyotaka thought if they were to do this without the new app, then it would not be possible. But since they have all the data on every student, it will be easier. Chabashiro then explains the exam further. On the day of the exam, there will be 5 subjects within it. The score for each subject is out of 100 points, meaning the total score is 500 points. There will be 2 ways to win. For each class and for one each individual. The classes will get 50, 30, 10, or 0 class points. And the top 5 pairs will get 100,000 private points as a special reward. 10,000 private points will also be provided to the top 30 pairs. And if the total score is 500 points or less, the second grade student will drop out instantly. And the first grade student will not be transferred any individual private points for 3 months. Damn, that second year rule must really be made for Kiyotaka, huh? Kiyotaka thought about this long and hard about thinking about the students in the first year. He mentioned you can apply to be a student's partner once a day using the OAA app, but if they do not accept, it will be reset at 10 PM. Both partners will not be able to accept new applications at 8 AM in the next morning when the information will be updated in the app at the same time. Ike then mentioned to Chabashiro that no kohai would want to work with him. Damn, I mean, he ain't wrong. I mean, I don't think anyone in general would want to work with him. Sensei then mentioned if they can't pair up on the day of the exam, they'll be randomly paired with someone on 8 AM on the day of it. Hirata then asked something, saying there were 3 dropouts last year, and wouldn't there be students left over? Chabashiro replied saying the remaining 3 students will be compensated by doubling the students' points, but there will also be a 5% penalty, so few would want to work alone. Kiyotaka knew if he got a perfect score of 500, but his partner got 0, he would have to drop out. Therefore, it's essential for his partner to score at least 1 point. He knew if he was matched up with the white room student, then he would have to drop out. Kiyotaka thought about this more, realizing he can't miss any opportunities for this exam. And if he takes too long to pick a partner, there's a probability with him being picked with the white room student. He only needs an academic grade of C, so he can't go pick who he wants. Kiyotaka decides he will find a partner with an academic rating of C, but anticipates the right student rating is also that of a C. Harita then asked Chabashiro how difficult the exam is. She replies saying it's a lot of difficult problems, but even students with an academic rating of E can get 150 points or more. She then displays a prediction table, that being academic ability to points ratio. Grade E, 150 to 200 points. Grade D, 200 to 250 points. Grade C, 250 to 300 points. Grade B, around 350 points. And Grade A, around 400 points. She mentions if they prepare properly, then they'll be able to get around this score, but to make sure they don't overtrust the content on the monitor. Now the interesting thing here is that Grade A is predicted around 400. So I wonder what Kiyotaka would do about this. I also wanted to note that whenever Kiyotaka refers to Hirata in his head, he actually uses his first name now, being Yosuke. Just showing the progression in their relationship and showing how much closer Hirata is to Kiyotaka's dick. During the break, everyone goes to gather around Hirata. He gets everyone to calm down and think what to do. Harita joins in and tells them they've worked on similar exams for a year, and they can get more than 250 points, or even 300 if they work hard. The words of these 2 leaders began to calm the students in the class down, really showing the weight they hold upon Class D. Hirata then mentioned she will negotiate with some students to join the football club. Mentioned students with academic ability lower than C should be their priority. But he asked Suda about the basketball club and the new students. It was like Suda was trying to avoid this. Harita then realizes because he was intimidating the kohais, meaning he already may be someone disliked by the first years. She tells him to focus on his studies and not to think about the special exam. After lunch, Harita called out Kiyotaka to the hallway. She She mentioned it's still ideal to compete with each other, going back to last volume where they made a bet to face off in the exam. You don't have any complaints, do you? She asks Kiyotaka. Of course, he replies. Kiyotaka thought this wouldn't be beneficial if this dragged on any longer. She then moves on to the next topic at hand. She checked 53 people in total at an academic grade of B or higher. It was said to be a reasonable percentage. The question is, how many honor students can be drawn into our D class? Even if there are 53 people, there's no telling 4 would come and help our 4 ranked E class students within class D. Kiyotaka talks about Pseudo's E rank, but then asks Horikita a question. What do you really think Pseudo is at now? She said it's something like D to a D+. Something seen as an over-optimistic calculation in Kiyotaka's eyes. Then I think about how hard it would be to get Pseudo a partner, comparing him to EK. One being easier to talk to and the other being a little bit intimidating to say the least. Horikita labels Pseudo as someone she wants to find a partner for first, then asks Kiyotaka to help her, but then he adds he can't do anything about this. You're gonna say what you think to me, and it's good to have someone you can trust. Do you trust me? Kiyotaka asked. So Horikita says she trusts all of her 3 growing classmates, giving an expression to where you can tell she was lying. Or do you feel uneasy that you haven't studied in a while to beat me, just provoking Kiyotaka? Kiyotaka saw this as a chance to escape. Very anxious right before he uttered those words, their phones rang. It was Ichinose of class B, saying for 4 to 5 PM she would hold an event, that being a meeting between the first years and the second years. Kiyotaka knew he'd be forced to participate in this exchange party. Horikita questions if he would really give a hand, and saying he's become a really supportive person as of recently. Kiyotaka mentions the use of private points may hold the key to victory, trying to say that's what students understand best. It was like fighting fire with fire, playing a game of cash to see who was more loaded. Horikita asks Kiyotaka if it's okay for him to find a partner on his own. Kiyotaka replies saying if she was a first year would she partner with him. Horikita adds that his academic rating is that of C, so it shouldn't be a problem with anyone. Kiyotaka then thinks about the White Room students, and how if someone chooses to work with Horikita or Hirata, it's probably not them. And knows it would be difficult to avoid that student 100% of the time. He won't make the first move, but he's still worried about that student. Kiyotaka knows it would be problematic for he to run into them. And that does it for chapter 2. Chapter 1 was like a little bit of a strange one, because like it was mostly recapping everything in the school in the first 2 pages, and chapters 2 really serves more of an intro within this first year. We get this tablet system, we get more of this high tech, and now we also got this exam. Well, this is a pretty interesting one. Kiyotaka has to find a kohai, but the thing is, he's not sure what kohai is the White Room student. So for example, if Kiyotaka gets 500 points in this exam, he still fails. The one student will have to get 1 point for him to pass. That means if he accidentally picks the White Room student, he's fucked. He's done. And also, I love the foreshadowing done by the author of Nagamo and his battle between the years coming to light. At the end of the last volume is sort of mentioned saying, hey, you might be able to fight against me soon. It only gets better from here, so stay tuned. Now in the gymnasium, there are a dozen of second and first year students. More first than second to be exact. Kiyotaka isn't familiar with any of the first year names, so he'll look for the second years participating. He didn't see Sakinagi, but he saw Hashimoto. Sadly, there was no indication to see if he was talking to anyone. As for Class B, he saw boys and girls including Ichinose and Kanzaki. And for Class C, there wasn't a single person. Ichinose knew the first years didn't know much about the second, so she begins to slowly but surely expand the circle of introduction, giving smiles. She didn't give priority to special exams, but instead building trusting relationships. It's a very Ichinose way to do things. It's a dazzling way that not just anyone can do, or either just giving an impression of Ichinose. They both know the second years are learning the name Ichinose Honami, and will come to her, but they won't bother to come to Class D. Horikita was beginning to get some hints at this event. Pseudo next to Horikita begins to glare at the first years, asking if there's some way they can take them away from Ichinose. Horikita tells him to be patient. What would you do, Kiyotaka asked, as he was curious about Horikita's behavior. Do you think we could compete in this place with the second year Class B in terms of sociability and win, she asked? The way Kiyotaka says he doesn't, but they knew this coming here. Horikita decides it's time to go, saying more than half of the first year students are not at this gathering, so she will negotiate with them outside. In other words, the aim was to target the ones who didn't show up at this gathering. There were 2 reasons for this, Horikita said. One being the percent of students who came to the party had a high percentage of people who were concerned about their academic ability. Then there was another, the students who were confident enough to fight without coming to an exchange party, were the ones on the outside. Horikita mentioned their top priority is not to get students of A grade but make sure there are no dropouts. But something was strange, the first year Class D students didn't happen to participate in this event at all. What the hell? Questioned Pseudo, tilting his head. But Horikita said this is a clear indication that someone has intention in the class, showing there is a clear leader or at least someone already controlling the class. Quite a strange thing considering they haven't been in school for too long. When they all left the gym, Hashimoto was outside as if he was waiting. He gave his hellos and mentioned Ichinose is the same as usual. He questioned if they knew the disadvantages of Ichinose attracting those idiots within the first year, saying it was like throwing away the game. Hashimoto talked like he was disgusted by Ichinose. Class A, or well, Sakinagi, knew without looking what kind of people would show up at the exchange party. So how are you going to bring the honor students to your side, they asked. Hashimoto said it was up to the princess as he just follows instructions. With that he walked away saying he's satisfied with a light conversation. Soon after, Suda mentioned he doesn't trust Hashimoto, to where Horikita asks if he's familiar with him. He is not. Pushing that topic aside, Horikita said they should hurry to the first years within Class D. Now on the first year floor, Kiyotaka and the others decide to check out the situation. Going on the first year floor isn't exactly a good thing, as you wouldn't expect to be welcome. They had to hurry before it was too late. Cuckoo, you're rather slow. After checking into Class C, Horikita heard a voice. That being the figure in front, fearlessly standing there. UN Kakadu. Horikita asked if he was looking for students who didn't go to the event, but UN said only idiots went there, so it wasn't worth seeing. This was the same strategy as Horikita, but the difference in timing was around 20 or worse, 30 minutes. Don't worry, I haven't made a move yet, Ryun said. But you wouldn't believe that though. So you choose the brainless guy as a bodyguard, or Ryun just taunting Sudo? What the hell, he shouted, but Horikita was able to control him, making sure he didn't lose his temper. Ryun carried on taunting, trying to make Sudo snap. While holding Sudo's hand, Horikita continues to stare at Ryun. She had Ryun's threatening attitude would be counterproductive towards the first years. Ryun denied, saying if he threatened them lightly, they would cooperate immediately. All she could do was stare at Ryun. He wasn't joking. Agree or disagree, I wonder if there would be a problem threatening them, Ryun added. A little while after bickering between the four, Ryun left the floor telling them good luck. Horikita thought the first years must feel a lot of resistance. It was good if they negotiated soon. She stared towards Class D at the end of the corridor. They then hurried there. It seemed Horikita noticed from when Ryun arrived to when he left, no one was coming out of Class D. Even as they got close, not a single sound was heard. When they opened the door, it was clear. Not a single soul inside of Class 1D. The 40 students who should have been there were nowhere to be seen. We then skipped to school the next day. On the day the special exam began, a total of 22 partners were decided. Once again at lunch the next day, the situation began to develop at a rapid pace. There were some first year students on the second year floor. Must have taken a lot of courage to come up here. There must have been a lot of students who would have felt they were in enemy territory coming up here. Hirata decided to see them, followed by Horikita, Sudo, and Kiyotaka. There were several reasons the boy stood out. For one, he may have been as tall as Sudo, whereas the person next to him was just a smaller female student. Hirata comes out in front of the male student. What's her name? The boy asked. The girl next to him checked and said it was Horikita Suzune with her academic ability grade of A. She spoke in a polite tone, the direct opposite to the man next to her. A really strange combination if I do say so myself. After that, the man turned his eyes to Sudo. Ken Sudo, huh? After seeing his data, he snorted at Sudo. The girl then spoke. My name is Nanase Tsubasa, a first year student of Class D. She then introduced the boy, to where he spoke his own name, Hosen Kazumi. For a freshman, you've done a lot of bold things. I'll buy that courage off you. By what? He questioned. I gotta say, from the first image we get of them, Hosen looks insane. He looks like a mix of Ryun and Sudo, while having that badass look while having the height and build of Sudo. Someone you wouldn't really want to mess with. As for Nanase, she's cute. That's all, for now. Hosen then goes to taunt Sudo, saying his grade makes him look stupid. And goes on to say Class 2D are a bunch of fallout, so if he didn't nominate their class, they can't even form a decent pair. Then asked them if they know what's next. It was like Hosen was testing them. He told Horikita to lower her head. While suppressing Sudo, she tightens her words, without caring about the physique difference. You seem to be mistaken about something. We're both on an equal footing, she states. On an equal footing? Hosen questions. You're the same Class D, nothing different from us, replying Horikita. Hosen then spoke, saying if he's interested in something, he will do as he wants, and went on to speak about private points and asked Horikita if she understood the situation. He stood right in front of her and strengthened his imitation about holding out a fist in his hand. Don't act so cocky, Sudo said. Horikita stopped him, telling him not to lose his cool, and reminding him about the school cameras. I know, replied Sudo, slightly irritated. All of a sudden, the big hand of Hosen pushes Sudo. At this moment, Sudo lost his balance, put one hand on the floor to break his fall. Is it only your height that's big? I just touched you lightly, didn't I? Not even Kiyotaka hide his surprise, watching the reckless action of Hosen. This was reckless, but the first year seemed to be more familiar with the school situation than usual. Kiyotaka questioned if they understood the school rules to himself. Sudo was able to regain his composure, understood what he had done, and almost burst into a rage. The man who had been watching jumped in. It was the second year Class C student, Ishizaki. Nanase stopped his light kick against Hosen, who laughed mockingly. Ishizaki stretched out his arms with the intention of grasping his chest. But at that moment, he saw the extended corner of Hosen's mouth slightly rise. If you don't want to die, then don't do it, Ishizaki. Ishizaki was stopped. It was Ryun. Why are you stopping me? He yelled. Kiyotaka even thought the same. Why was he stopping Ishizaki? He thought Ryun welcomed this kin of trouble and is not the type to hate it. Whether there's a camera or anything, Ryun would go ahead. That's why Ishizaki must have been surprised. Also, a question of Ryun was his opponent. I mentioned Sudo seems to be weaker than an idiot. Ryun said he knows Hosen very well, and he's like a celebrity in the old town he used to live in. And? What is it that you know, Ryun? Ryun? Questioned Hosen, who heard the name, then changed. He began to laugh, with his big wide mouth open. Hey, what the hell? It's a rainy day. I've heard enough of your rumors to dislike you. It looks like you have the intelligence to remember people's names, said Ryun. It seemed the two knew each other for a long time. Hosen then questioned Yuan's body, saying it's surprising. Hosen said he was going to kill him, but then he went into hiding, abandoning his soldiers, running away. Yuan laughed, saying if they met elsewhere, Hosen wouldn't have had such a big attitude. Hosen held a big fist and gave some room. If he knew Yuan and junior high, there was no difference between the impression that the second years give him. Yuan with no interest laughs a little before leaving. Ibuki asks if he was okay leaving it like this, to where Yuan says quietly, it is for now, and there's plenty of time. Is that your goal soldier too? Hosen questions while watching Ibuki. Yes, why? Replied Yuan. Huh? Ibuki questions, saying not to make her his soldier. Yuan, who even uses girls as soldiers, said Hosen. You'll want to talk. Who's that cute and pretty girl over there? Replied Yuan. It seems similar in a way, both having girls by their side. Hosen said nanase wasn't a soldier, and then provoked Yuan, asking him to play. No matter how many times he provoked, Yuan would not write it, and turned his back, showing his will to retreat. That's right. If that's the case, then Kiyotaka thought Yuan was making the smart choice, but then Hosen extended his arm, but not towards Yuan, but to Ibuki instead. She tried to ignore it, but extended more quickly and powerful than before, and grabbed Ibuki by the neck straight up. Yuan looked back and captures the sight of Ibuki being choked by Hosen. She tried to escape using her hand and feet skillfully, but Hosen would just not let go. Yuan moved while being amazed. He began to help Ibuki rather than go for Hosen. However, while holding Ibuki's neck, Hosen made a light kick towards Yuan in a restricted motion. No, it was Ishizaki joined the fight. This commotion was becoming something that cannot be suppressed. Nanase, who seemed to be watching from the beginning to the end, then opened her mouth. Please stop this, Hosen-kun, she said. Did you say something? He replied. She mentioned that the senpai's been worried about the cameras from the situation. There's no benefit going wild here. Hosen just replied, saying to let him do what he wants and play with them for a while. All while being aware of the cameras. Nanase strengthened her words, saying she can make that known here. Hearing the word that, Hosen came to a halt. Showing a bored face, he dropped Ibuki and caused her to fall to the floor coughing. Nanase with no fear told Hosen not to do this again. The situation seemed to calm down as if nothing happened. Kiyotaka knew the boy called Hosen would not be easy to negotiate with. He then mentioned there are only a few students proud of their ability to fight, naming Yuan, Albert, and Sudo. But Hosen is quite talented in fighting too. Kiyotaka had a thought, saying if he was to fight Hosen, then he wouldn't be an easy opponent to keep control of. Let's not do anything else. The purpose had been fulfilled, so let's head back, Nanase. That's wise, replied Yuan, taunting Hosen in the process. Hosen looked back at Yuan, wondering if he was satisfied with a small fight, and suddenly asked him if he wanted to team up. Unfortunately, I only work with humans. I'm not going to work with a wild gorilla. That's a shame, replied Hosen. But this did not end here. In addition to the two first-year students, another was watching for a long time. You didn't see anything, got it? Don't get too close to me. Yes, I understand. The boy of the first year then answered Hosen. An adult showed up and asked what Hosen was doing. It was a man in a suit. He said to him fights aren't tolerated by the school. Laughing with his nose, Hosen said it wasn't even a fight, and turned his back, walking with his hands in his pockets. I apologize for the fuss. It was Nanase who bowed her head. She then raised her face and looked into Kiyotaka's eyes. Her eyes looked like if she wanted to know something. The man in the suit then apologized. It was a teacher, the first year class D teacher to be exact. His name was Shiba Katsunori. He gave a light introduction and left to follow Hosen. Then, the boy showed some composure, bowed to the second grade students after they left. He said sorry on behalf of the first year. He was different from the others. He seemed like a well-capable student of communicating. After the apology, the student who called himself Yagami lifted his head, bowing. At that time, he noticed something. There was a few girls from class D who returned from lunch, that being Matsushita, Kushida, Sato, and Michan. Kushida looked at all the commotion and asked what was going on. Rikta said she shouldn't concern himself. Are you by any chance Kushida-senpai? What? She questioned. It's me. Don't you remember Kushida-senpai? But it's not unreasonable if you forgot. I'm Yagami Takuya. Kushida listened to his name and pondered for a little. She seemed to remember him right away. Yagami. Oh my god, eh? That Yagami-kun? Yes, it's Yagami. It's been a very long time. Kushida said this was a great coincidence. Oh no, like, I think we really know what Kushida's really thinking about her meeting another fragment of her past right now. Oh god. Sato then asked if they knew each other, to where Kushida nods. Yes, however, I made very little contact with him. Takuya Yagami had an impression he was incredibly smart, but I didn't talk to him all that much because our grades were different. Kiyotaka then asked Horikita if she knew him. She did not, and said she didn't have enough time to look at people she wasn't interested in. aka she was busy trying to focus on Oni-sama! Yagami said he was very lucky to go to the same school as his senpai. Kiyotaka knew Kushida would be worried about this, due to her past. If it wasn't bad enough, Horikita knew. There was another one here. The existence of Yagami is not a safe existence for Kushida. It's sudden, but since you're my senpai, you won't complain. Can you partner with me? Kushida questioned if he's fine with her, to where Yagami says he doesn't know anyone else he can trust. Can you let me think about it for a little bit? Kushida replied. Was she watching out for Yagami, or was there another reason? He said of course, and he would wait for a reply. With Yagami's academic grade of A, there's no problem for him waiting. Sudo seemed envious, saying he wouldn't have hesitated to team up. Rikta then gave some encouragement to Sudo, telling him to work harder. Kiyotaka then walked towards the ayanokoji group. He saw Ida, who expressed their impression of Hosen, saying she was scared. Haruka added that the first year was similar to that of Yuan. Then all of a sudden Akito said that Yuen and Hosen were famous in his hometown, and he had never seen them prior to going to this school. He added there were many people in the school who were strong but one day disappeared. He found out that someone 2 years younger than him was sent to hospital by Hosen. He then asked Akito if he was bad too, to where he said he quit that lifestyle and is a good student as of now. That means you were bad, right? A question peered further by Haruka. All Akito could do was scratch his head as if he was in trouble. Haruka added if that was the case, then it's cool. Kyoto added that the reason Akito was familiar with fights was because he was used to these violent situations and had quite the courage with dealing with fights. What if you shut down Hosen in a fight? Hearing that, Akito raised a white flag even before testing it out. It wasn't he was blurting out a weakness, but rather acknowledging Hosen's strength. Even Ibuki had some sense of fighting couldn't do anything. Hosen was too big and too powerful. I really want to see if Akito in a fight now, maybe against, I don't know, maybe like Ibuki or Ishizaki. It really makes me wonder how strong he can really be. After school, Kiyotaka is again called out by Harikta. When the two tried to leave the class, Sudo was eager to accompany them. Harikta tried to reject it once again, but was pushed by an enthusiasm to find him a partner. She started agreeing on the condition that Sudo worked hard on his club as well as studying. Kiyotaka even started to see Harikta as unexpectedly kind, but thought there was a good reason for this. There were around 10 days left until the exam. If Harikta or anyone could think about how hard the exam was, they could probably concentrate on studies a little more. But due to the situation with Sudo's partner, Harikta was not able to study clearly. Harikta clearly understands a man Ken's Sudo, but there was one thing she just can't seem to understand, that being Sudo's feelings for her. Even Kiyotaka questions if she doesn't realize Sudo wanted to be by her side for no reason, but of course he didn't bother to tell her. Kiyotaka didn't know why and wondered if it was because of Hosen, but he would know soon. Once that the more frank impression of the first years was spread out in their field of vision, all they could think about was how the students were getting carried away, for private points that is. It was the same for the second years when they got there. Spending money, playing around every single day. It was obvious they would enjoy this school, Kiyotaka thought. And then added the penalty for the first years versus the second years was annoying. If they fail, they must drop out. But if the first years fail, all they lose is 3 months of private points. Even Sudo mentioned how carefree they were, to where Harikta reminded him saying that's how they were. He said he hadn't forgotten and regrets it. What's really dope from Sudo, like we really get to see him acknowledge his mistakes and a little wrongdoing of his. He wouldn't have done that before, so that's amazing. They then approached a group of first year boys sitting on a bench. 3 students who in class 1D and had an academic ability rating of grade B or higher. Kyoto questioned if Harikta is still aiming for class D. Harikta then called out, but their once happy expression turned to one of worry. Went ahead and asked saying they were looking for partners to work with. The Kohais said they didn't have partners to work with and asked for names. Sudo showed a face of surprise about the attitude of the 3 being serious. After seeing Sudo's grade, they said it was awkward mentioning it was a grade of E. One of them had a grade of A, saying it wasn't impossible, but added they could make up the lack of grade difference with private points. Sudo offered 50k private points. He told Sudo to stop joking, saying he wouldn't expect 50,000. Ah, replied Sudo. It's 500,000. If you were to give me 500,000 points, I can partner up with him here now. 500,000? He replied, just shocked. These Kohais are ruthless. I do really feel like they're smarter or have more of an idea when it comes to private points to when Kiyotaka's year first joined though. Rita says they may be able to help in the future if they sell their favor here. Saying the school isn't all about studying and physical abilities come into play here too. Showing even Sudo could be useful to them with his physical grade rating of A+. One of the Kohais, Shotari, judged calmly and answered no. He mentioned before they came they were approached by another class in the second year, and that they would not sell their academic abilities at such a low price. Rita mentioned they were both class D and no class would talk to them so normally, but they're saying it was true, mentioning Hashimoto of class A offered them a reasonable amount of points to team up. It was what Harikta expected, both class A and class C began to make their move. The Kohai mentioned he'll wait a week with the offer of 500k points to team up with Sudo. Even I agree, it was ridiculous for this amount of points they were requesting, but you can sort of buy the safety or, you know, the guaranteed safety, making sure Sudo doesn't get expelled. Walking away, Sudo added it was a silly offer, but Harikta replied saying you can't sell yourself cheaply. It was looking the only way to help Sudo was through private points. But still, it was hard to say at this time. Even Kiyotaka wanted to avoid points being used in an exam. Kiyotaka knew Hosen was controlling the whole of Class D for this exchange. The idea was both that Hosen may have said they were free to work with whoever, but for only 500k points, and to put the offer on hold if it's from Class A. It was a reckless strategy they were using. They weren't even sure what to do, and even Harikta spoke about how the first years wouldn't throw away the chance of not getting paid for 3 months. Harikta was determined to face the Class D everybody wanted to avoid. She said it would be dangerous if all of them tried to get into Hosen's class, so they had to spread out the risk. Now that the exam has just begun, it's no wonder that there are students who can work together under exceptional conditions. They all knew they had to negotiate multiple students. All of a sudden, while climbing the stairs, they heard a voice from a female student. She was looking at them with a big smile. Well, if you're looking for a partner, I'm here. As soon as her eyes met with Kiyotaka, she slowly came up the stairs. Harikta asked if she heard the conversation just now. I just called out to my senior because I happened to overhear a conversation. Senpai, what's your name and academic ability? Harikta mentioned she's from Class D and had an academic rating of A. Hey, you're smart, the girl added. Harikta then asked for the girl's name. She then introduced herself. She was a student from class 1A, her name being Amasawa Ichika. Y'all already know. Best kohai, best kohai. I'm telling you guys. I don't think I can even describe in words how much I'm in love with this woman, but for now we'll move on, okay? And don't get me wrong, lass. I still love, I still love Kay, but like Ichika being here, like sort of calls out to a boy in a different way. Don't judge me. Ichika mentioned her academic ability is that of A. Kiyotaka thought she was smart and didn't have the appeal of a gal. Horita confirmed her evaluations on OAA app. Ichika, without hesitating, said, "If you're looking to aim for the higher awards, why don't you team up with me?" It was an unexpected situation, but Horita was prioritizing Sudo as partner. She declined and asked if she could partner with Sudo instead. He was puzzled but bowed down. Ichika then asked for Sudo's academic ability grade rating. E+. I can't say it's a very good evaluation, said Sudo. I see, in other words, Horita-senpai is helping him find a partner to stop him from leaving the school. Ichika then looked at Sudo. Instead, if she partnered with him, his ranking would be halfway below the middle rather than the top. She knew there was little benefit. Well, since you asked me, I wouldn't mind cooperating with you. Kiyotaka knew she was better than the 3 students from before. She then turned her eyes to Kiyotaka. What about you, senpai? Looking for a partner in the same way? Horita answered for Kiyotaka, saying he had an academic ability rating of C, and she's not in a hurry for him to get a partner. I haven't said I was going to work together with you guys yet, have I? Ichika replied. Horita asked if she had any conditions. Well, she questioned, saying she probably had the right to. All Kiyotaka could think about was the private points, but all of a sudden, Ichika laughed, like a little devil, saying she liked strong people. This had nothing to do with the exam. Even Horita frowned suspiciously. She carried on saying she liked strong men. Ichika, if you're looking for a strong guy, like, I'm right here. Ichika turned her fingertip to Sudo, knowing his grade would be low, but still didn't care. Sudo had confidence in his body nods and appeals while being a little bit shy. Would you like to partner with me? She asked while reaching out, touching Sudo's cheeks. Damn, I'm glad it's just like they didn't bring EK with them, because like if EK got this treatment, I'm telling y'all, like right now, I'll drop the series mid-read and throw myself off something. I'm not joking. Sudo said it would be best for him. After that, the thin fingertip crawled onto Sudo's chest plate, and Sudo was fascinated by her bewitching sign. Sudo reassured her he is strong. Ichika then said she was trying to get a few second years to fight and see who's the strongest. Are you kidding me? You can't do that. Ichika asked why, saying she's been talking serious the whole time. The bell then rang and the 3 were ready to leave. Even Sudo cut out because he didn't think Ichika was taking this seriously. He wasn't interested in her in the slightest. You're not joking, you're quite serious, aren't you? Horita said. Her eyes were serious. Of course, replied Ichika. Horita then mentioned the school wouldn't allow it, referring to fights as her idea. Certainly, a quarrel is not a compliment. But if the 2 sides agree, then there'll be no inconvenience. Don't you think so too, ayanokoji-kun? Kiyotaka thought about this even more, and thought the obvious answer is no. He then replied, That's right. There's no way the school officials would agree to a fight. But if the students agreed to fight, it's not going to be much of a problem. Then added that no one could beat Sudo in the 2nd grade. You see, the thing wasn't to affirm this quarrel, but instead say with confidence, Sudo is the strongest, even if he isn't to fight. Telling Ichika she should take this offer without hesitation. She said she was excited to where they tried to make a deal. That being if there are no other students, she could team with Sudo. Ichika said she would promise this. Everyone seemed to be fine. Ichika then said if he had confidence in his skill, then to send an email to her today that he is entering. Heh, whoever comes, I'll show them who's boss. Ichika mentioned she doesn't think another party would come. And when she's looking at Sudo, she can tell he's the strongest and the top student within the 2nd year. Horita reveals her dissatisfaction as she cannot understand. Are you making fun of us? She questions. Ichika said not to get angry and give her a chance for forgiveness. She mentioned she likes strong guys next to men who can cook, and asked Sudo to cook for her. Huh? He questioned, saying he's never cooked since he was born. Ichika laughed like a little devil yet again, saying even if they taught Sudo how to cook, they won't have enough time. As a warning, she said it wouldn't be long until she gets a partner. In conclusion, if Sudo is able to cook well, then she would work with him. Horita then says something to Kiyotaka. Ayanokoji, surely you boasted to me that you were good at cooking before. I've never talked about such a thing, Kiyotaka thought. I had to grab the manga panel for this. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, the Year 2 manga is airing, or like, serializing at the moment. So, it isn't better than a light novel, but it's really enjoyable in its own type of way. So, I had to pull out this little panel because it's so fucking funny, I'm not gonna lie. Kiyotaka then realized what Horita was trying to do. He said he's not exaggerating, but cooking is his only area of expertise. Ichika then came to the decision that Kiyotaka should cook for her. Right now, to be exact. But Kiyotaka even knew if he was the cook with his current skills, then he wouldn't even be able to satisfy Ichika's tastes. But tried to saw saying Kiyotaka needs to help the other classmates find partners, and Friday would work instead. Ichika wasn't budging, but with a little more pushing, she agreed to do it late at night today. Horita mentioned if a first-year girl went to a second-year boys' dorm, it wouldn't be very good. This time, a severe reply came from Ichika's mouth. She said she would only wait 1 day, and if they can't cook for her, she would partner with someone else. Kiyotaka realized Horita dragged them into something really unnecessary. They came to a final conclusion that Kiyotaka would cook for her tomorrow. Along with this, Ichika makes the deal to head to the mall with Kiyotaka the next day. Kirito offers to go as well, but Ichika denies, saying he would need to do this alone, with no advice. Ichika then says her goodbyes and walks down the stairs like she was satisfied. Kiyotaka then spoke. Odikta, I think we're in trouble. Shut up. I'll think of a strategy. That Ichika really is so, like, sly and devious. Like they said, they keep saying little devil every time she laughs. And she's the best Kohai. How can you like her already? Like, god damn it. Plus, she's hot too. Like, I'm sorry, I had to get that out of the way as well. Now, the real question is, if Kiyotaka is able to satisfy her tongue. Really good chapter though. Nice intro into the Kohais, and really cool to see how they sort of understand private points even better than what the second years did in the first year. Really begs the question. How smart and like what are the top players like within the first year? We have Sakinagi, Ryuen, and Ichinose in the second year. But in the first year, it's like, yo, what are these top players going to be like? This is going to be wild. And damn, we got a lot more Kohais to go. And some spicy plot too, so let's move on to chapter 4. Not a further, the app was updated again at 8 AM. 34 more pairs were formed, a total of 56 pairs when combined from vols for Monday. But with a max number of 157, more than 30% of students have decided on partners at this early stage. These pairs came from class 2B. I guess Ichinose must have been putting in the hard work, huh? It seemed Kushida found a partner, as well as Yagami, meaning they probably teamed up. The strangest thing, though, was no one within class 1D had found a pair. Kiyotaka knew if he didn't move soon, he would be in trouble. But also added if a student was able to work with him so easily, it was most likely they were the White Room student. Knew Sakisha wouldn't be merciful when it came to this exam. To take it further, this man Kiyotaka learned everyone's name and face and grades on the OAA app. Like, Jesus, that's 160 freshmen pretty much. But even still, it didn't help. Kiyotaka knew he had to find a safe student out of the remaining few, and added that the White Room student does not discriminate by gender. So, how could you narrow this down? One of the ways could be physique. When it came to food, the White Room sort of managed it in every little detail. Meaning, well, it's impossible for them to be out of shape. Therefore, we could at least cross off a select few in the first year. But this still wasn't absolute, so here's stuff to be careful. Kiyotaka mentioned that 2 of the students in the app seemed to be blatantly obese. I find this like low-key funny. Like this man Kiyotaka really looked at a picture and be like, god damn, this girl is fat, fam. Like, god damn. If you're a White Room student, then you should at least have an academic rating of A or A+. Well, that's what you should have. But it wouldn't be surprising if their grade was lower like Kiyotaka's, like a rating of E or C. Meaning, therefore, it was impossible to narrow down anything. The only thing Kiyotaka could do for now was look right into their eyes to see if the student were an enemy. He even went out the dorm and headed to school for the day. Then saw 2 girls talking to each other in the first year, those being Kurihara and Konishi. Both of them reminded Kiyotaka of Kushida as they were similar in appearance. But sadly, both of them found partners on the first day. But it wasn't like Kiyotaka was looking for a partner, so it really didn't matter. He thought about talking to the girls to help with Class D, but found it would be hard to approach them, and thought it would help if Hirata was there as he's quite popular, and it would be easy to convince them. But there's no reason to rush, he felt. All of a sudden he was greeted good morning by someone, that being Tsubasa Nanase, the girl with Hosen. She gave him a carefree smile to where he replied saying good morning. He didn't expect her to call out, so he was a little slower to answer. I suppose I got all these girls, like I'm not gonna lie, like they make me lose my mind. Like all the panels look so good and all the girls are just like, they're too cute, that's what I'm gonna say. She asked if Kiyotaka had any business with the 2 girls and she would call them over for him. Kiyotaka thought if that happened it would turn into a discussion with 3 girls, making it harder for him. Remember, my boy Kiyo is still like yet to learn the way of women, at least that's what he would say. Even though I would say he's a natural if we saw what he did with Ichinose last volume, but he's just being cute and shy, let's just say. He said no. Is that so? Questioned Nanase, walking at almost the same speed as him, curious to why he just said that. This conversation was unexpected, but Kiyotaka was thankful, but thought he should be wary of the first years who initiate conversation with him, just like Ichika yesterday. He was suspicious on the White Room student. Nanase then said sorry for Hosen's rude behavior the other day. Bro, rude is an understatement. He choked Ibuki. Bro, I was meant to do that. Kiyotaka then said it was fine and didn't affect them in any way. He then said unlike Hosen, Nanase was very polite and sociable. On top of that, her academic grade was at a B. She was the perfect partner. He wouldn't be surprised if she was approached by the other second years. But thought because of Class 1D's policy, she was still unpartnered. He then thought about Nanase's other balance grades, that being of C+. There were no problems at first sight. So the question then comes, why is Nanase Tsubasa in Class D? The whole image of Class D are for students with problems. Let's take Kushida with her crazy personality or Hirata with his past. When their shells crack, you are able to see the true them. So what if Nanase cracked? What would be her true nature? I wonder. Kiyotaka was worried about the eye-catching look he showed Hosen when they first met. He then asked Nanase if she had decided on a partner. She said she hadn't. He then asked more questions like if anyone asked her. Nanase confirmed, saying she's been asked by some second years in situations, but it even offered points. But she declined. Kiyotaka decided to be a little bit more aggressive and asked what was the reason for her holding off on a partner. Nanase replied saying she couldn't answer that, bowing her head in apology. Kiyotaka said there was no need to apologize, saying the way she responded was a good answer. If you like, why don't you work together with the second year class D to find the right partner? Kiyotaka added. Cooperation between classes, is it? She questioned. Kiyotaka mentioned a lot of students trying to team up with highly academic students for their grade. But due to their students with low ability to be exposed to withdrawal, Nanase said she understood and wanted to avoid it if possible. Kiyotaka pushed further saying, how about it? Nanase agreed, saying she would like to cooperate as just? Kiyotaka questioned. She replied saying she doesn't know how many people in her class would help. Kiyotaka said he doesn't need everyone's cooperation. With some adjustments, they can get through the exam with just little help. That's right. But it's not like there are no other problems, Nanase said. They agreed on the idea and Nanase showed a dark expression. Kiyotaka said he was sure it was Hosen not agreeing with this idea. Then added he seemed to hold a big presence within Class 1D. Nanase confirmed, saying many in the class had decided to follow him. Kiyotaka asked if she's afraid of Hosen, to where she said she wouldn't give in to violence, something unexpected from her appearance, but she didn't seem to be lying. She then asked Kiyotaka what he thought of violence, asking if it's a good or bad thing. Kiyotaka said if he had to pick from the two, it's an advantageous thing. She then looked at him with the same eyes as yesterday, and after a few seconds she agreed, saying she had the same opinion. Kiyotaka thought about when Nanase mentioned that to Hosen, realizing Hosen responded strongly to the word. He was curious about her. Kiyotaka questioned if they could set up a meeting. She said it was a welcoming offer, but even questioned if it was good for them. He replied saying he doesn't know who will come, and at worst case he may be alone. Nanase then asked if Horikta was the one leading Class 2D. Kiyotaka confirmed, saying she was. They then both agreed to make adjustments as soon as possible and exchange numbers. After a while, Kiyotaka decided to wait outside of school, seeing Horikta wasn't there yet. Horikta showed up soon after and gave him a strange look. It was like she knew he was waiting. Good morning. You're meeting someone? She questioned. It's kind of like a meeting. The one I'm waiting for has arrived. She then turned around and realized there's no one there, and looked back at Kiyotaka and asked if it was her. Kiyotaka said he wanted to talk about something quickly. Horikta wondered if it was important. He then started to talk about his proposal with Nanase. She asked what it was, to where Kiyotaka mentioned the deal between two Class Ds working together. You've done something completely unlike you, she added. Kiyotaka was ready for her to be angry. She asked if Kiyotaka had done this because he realized how hard it was to face Hosen. Kiyotaka replied saying he just reanalyzed the situation for the exam and asked if she could hear it. He wasn't expecting anything but decided to tell her anyway. He mentioned points again, saying the points offered from Class A or C weren't much of a difference. Horikta then said if that was the case, Class A has more of a brand to work with. Therefore, Class C must be trying to raise the points to compete. They know if they play the money game, they cannot win. As for Class B, Ichinose is building relationships and saving low-ranked students within the first year. The aim is now to get students with grades from C+ to B, as they wouldn't ask for much money. Therefore, it will be good to talk with them while Class A and C are focusing on higher tiers. But this doesn't mean they'll give up on Class 1D. The only problem was Hosen looking for a point deal. But they question if that was just it. Going back to when Hosen said to Horikta, if they don't nominate their class, then they won't be able to form a decent pair. He would give a hand to help the stupid and incompetent, showing his aim is to help Class 2D. And also the last thing Nanase said, the word that was suspicious. They were determined to work with Class 1D. She mentioned if they can work with Class 1B. Kiyotaka thought about Kushida and Yagami. Horikta mentioned they became partners, but she doesn't remember her co-highs from middle school. I thought Yagami could be the key to negotiation for Class B. A little bit later in class, Horikta asked Hirata and asked for some of his time. We talked about the first years and Hirata said it was hard because they didn't cooperate so easily. Yet again, they asked for points. It wasn't really surprising at this point. Going forward a little, Horikta asked Hirata if he can continue talking to the first years. He agreed and went back to his seat, giving a smile to Horikta. They all knew being in class D was a handicap. It was a tough fight, but they had to keep pushing. After school ended, there was no response from Nanase. Now came the problem with Ichika's cooking test. Kiyotaka arrived at the mall 10 minutes before the awaited time. Ichika was not there yet. Kiyotaka mentioned the weather was warmer than usual, but by the evening it would get colder and colder. Ichika then showed up. It's perfect, ayanokoji senpai. As soon as she was there, she smiled multiple times. It was like she was satisfied with something. Kiyotaka asked what she was talking about. She was referring to him arriving before her, and not doing anything unnecessary. You notice that Ichika was very observant of trivial things, such as messing around with your phone and making a call. This would be a challenge from Ichika from now on. They decided to go. Ichika stops at a corner full of kitchenware, meaning she was going to get some specialty equipment to help him cook. Kiyotaka asked if she cooked, to where Ichika replied saying she's better being fed than feeding others. Damn, I feel like the exact same way. Like, your boy loves to cook though. Like, trust me, I love to cook, but like, being fed is that beautiful. For a few seconds, Kiyotaka folded his arms, wondering if he was worried about something. Ichika then got a cutting board and a kitchen knife, as well as a bowl and a whisk and some other stuff, putting one thing after another into a basket. Kiyotaka said he already had most of his stuff in his room, but Ichika said it was okay, and she would get them for her own use. But Kiyotaka would be the one paying. Damn, my boy is cooking and paying? I hope you women watching aren't this evil, like, please. She mentioned if he was a good cook, then he would need a good knife. The price being 3,000 points for that one knife. The total amount was over 15k private points. Ichika said it was okay as it was only for her. She wouldn't use it every day so it won't wear out. Cheeky devil, he replied. As Kiyotaka said this, Ichika's face looked disgusted, as if he wanted to call her quits. That he made Ichika angry, yo. Kiyotaka knew he had to do something to help Suda. No, save him even. He said he understood and not to hesitate. Ichika asked Kiyotaka if he thought she was a bad woman. Kiyotaka did not think that. She looked deep into his eyes before laughing, saying that's good. After that, Kiyotaka went to the supermarkets to buy ingredients. The total cost so far was 20k private points. It was the first time he got so much. Ichika then asked why didn't go to his room, like a girlfriend coming to play. After a while, they got to the dorm and Ichika put her hand over her eyebrows to block the sun. She said she was worried about visiting the second year dorm. Sure, she says, but she doesn't look like it one bit. Now in the room, Ichika says it was neat and clean, to where Kiyotaka replied saying he rushed to clean it because he knew she would be coming over. Don't make it seem like you started cooking last night, he thought to himself. What's funny, if Kiyotaka was to watch a motherfucking Gordon Ramsay video, I wonder if you could perfectly imitate the dish. I'm really curious about that. It would be dope though. Kiyotaka got her to sit down and watch TV while he made coffee. She got up and came to the kitchen saying it was foul to use his phone while cooking, questioning if he's confident in his abilities. He said it was, but he uses his phone while cooking. She demanded him to leave his phone on the bed. She nodded and picked up her coffee. Ichika then announced the dish to Kiyotaka they'll be cooking. Tomoyakun. If I pronounced that right, I'm really sure if it didn't. What is a Thai soup with a sour and pungent taste? I'm going to shorten it to Tom Yum. Kiyotaka did not know of this dish. She asked if Kiyotaka could make it though. This was the kind of thing that will never be served in the White Room. Not only does Kiyotaka not know how to prepare it, he just has no idea about the dish in general. He thought all the recipes he practiced last night were worthless, but he had to try. He couldn't go on his phone or nothing else, and Ichika would keep surveillance on him. Luckily, Kiyotaka had wireless earphone while having Sudo's phone in his bag. It was a blind spot where Ichika couldn't see. He coughed and Horikita began to speak through the earphone. If Ichika was to show up to the kitchen, Kiyotaka could shake his hand and put the earbud in his pocket. He would have to communicate with Horikita in an interesting way. Kiyotaka would ask random questions to Ichika about the dish, and ask if she wanted any other dishes. Doing that, Horikita could help. Kiyotaka thought he only met with Ichika recently, but was now serving her a meal. Poor Kalo, Kay keeps getting NTR'd in the funniest ways, without even realizing it with the Ichinoshi thing, and now with this, goddamn. We now wait for judge's decision. She put her hands on the table and said it felt like a feast. My senpai's Tom Yam. The judgment here would be very important for the future of the exam. Yeah, it was reasonable. It wasn't special, but it was good enough to eat again. Damn, not good or bad. That would worry me in my opinion. Same as Ichika heads to the kitchen with her bowl and spoon. She didn't just put away the dishes, but started to clean up too. I'll do the cleaning, Kiyotaka said, but Ichika wouldn't have it and told him to relax as he cooked. She was yet to say if Kiyotaka passed or failed. After a while, Kiyotaka asked, I can't say that you passed the exam, but it's true you could cook, said Ichika. She also added that he bought a lot of expensive things, and made her eat this for free. This time, I work with Sudo-senpai in return for my senpai's efforts. Kiyotaka had done it, but it came at a decent cost too. For now, Ichika would admit this was the minimum. After cleaning, she went to Kiyotaka and went on her phone applying to be Sudo's partner. Kiyotaka thanked her. Then he asked something of Ichika. She seemed to know what it was though, admitting if he wanted to act as a bridge between Class D and Class A. Kiyotaka replied to Ichika saying it would help as there are a lot of people like Sudo. She said sorry though and she couldn't do it, and she doesn't have the delicacy and it's hard to make friends. With that she left. Kiyotaka failed to get Class A's help, but for now, this was enough. Somehow he managed to do it, huh? Kiyotaka saying this from his own phone. Horikita thanked him. It was bad to use a method like this, but one could say it was the only way. The only thing left to do was for Sudo to accept the application. Horikita asked why Kiyotaka asked for Ichika to be a bridge between their classes. Adding the way her personality is, it would be a problem to negotiate if her friends were the same. Kiyotaka explained how the classes were in the first year, but after hearing more and more, Horikita seemed to fall silent. He asked what was wrong, and Horikita replied saying his way of thinking was very calculated and smart. Kiyotaka said it wasn't a big deal. Horikita said she understood why Manabu paid so much attention to him. He replied saying he had no ulterior motives. With that, they spoke about nanase and the next move, and ended the call. After that, Kiyotaka checked the kitchen, and not only did Ichika finish the washing, but the sink was well polished as well, and all the utensils were neatly stored. Kiyotaka thought if Ichika was a White Room student, it wouldn't be strange. But there was no sign of this. It'd be difficult leaving the White Room to create a personality like hers. On top of that, she teamed with Sudo. He still wasn't in the clear though. He then received a message from Nanase. I can meet you tomorrow after school. On the same day where Kiyotaka was cooking for Ichika, we go to Sakinagi's perspective. She was with Kamado and Hashimoto together for a talk. It was about the other class and them rejecting class points to partner. They talked about Ryuhan offering 100k private points, realizing he was trying to compete with all his heart. It seemed Class C and A were a large battle too. They talked more about Ryuhan and wondering if he would pay even more. They came to the conclusion he would. Sakuna decided to fight fire with fire and to tell the students she would prepare the same amount of points as Ryuhan. Her goal was to use the same strategy as Ryuhan and make clear that Class C students were inferior in overall strength. They weren't in a hurry though, as Ryuhan only acquired a few students. With the brand power of Class A, they were sure to bring in a lot of students. Rest assured, it won't. I will win this game without any problems, added Sakinagi. Kamado not able to keep up with her just sighs. Sakinagi looks out the window and prayed that the enemy coming to her was a worthy opponent. 2 hours later on the same day, we go to Ryuhan's point of view. He was in a karaoke room with Ibuki and Ishizaki. They talked about a Class B student not being satisfied with his raised price of 200,000 private points, but instead Sakinagi offering the same amount. You and say he'll pay 100,000 in advance, then 200,000 after the exam, a total of 300k private points. Yun would not lose to Sakinagi no matter what. The only way to beat Class A was to keep raising the points. Yun was trying to educate the first years, saying he's better than Sakinagi. He was looking forward to this special exam. Looking forward to drag down Sakinagi's Class A. Now Thursday, Kiyotaka went to the library of Horikita. He was going to talk about the 2 Class C's with nanase today. Horikita had never had a real conversation with nanase, only the time with Hosen. But you really couldn't call that a real one. Everyone arrived at the library and stepped inside. Oh, that's rare. As a customer, the first one to greet him was not nanase, but instead Hiyori Shina of Class C. They told her it may be noisy in here as they are discussing the exam. She gave them advice for the best seats on this. They took it and Horikita asked how Class C was doing. Hiyori said it was alright and things seemed to be going well. It would be hard to discuss further than that though. They exchanged few but simple words and said their goodbyes. Kiyotaka somehow worried about Hiyori, but followed Horikita to the seats. Within one of Hosen would show up to this meeting. While waiting to talk about their competition for the exam, Horikita was confident in her daily studies that she wouldn't lose. After a bit, nanase showed up. It seemed Hosen didn't come. She sat down and here the 3 were. The same rank of class, the lowest of the low if you will. They got right to the point and wanted to make a deal for the remaining Class D students to the team. The only hard part was getting everyone to agree, as Hosen seemed to control the class. Nanase wasn't able to answer some questions as it would be seen as class betrayal. They decided to negotiate. She mentioned that Hosen's way of thinking was one of individualism, something deeply rooted. The only way to team was to get private points for 3 months. This was for the students of low academic ability at least. Rita asked if she was afraid of Hosen. Yes, she immediately replied without hesitation. The one who hadn't looked at Kiyotaka so far gave the same look to Horikita she gave him. The eyes saying I won't give in to violence. Nanase might be the only other person who could lead the first year Class D. Rita then asked how many Class 1D students are finding it hard to partner with someone. It was around 15. Rita then asked something, saying she'd like to make a contract with Nanase. She asked if it was a big one. Contract being 15 pairs of partners in both Class Ds teaming. Doesn't matter if their grading was E or A, just the equal partnership to help with one struggling. In other words, it's a relationship that benefits both classes. There's no guarantee they were able to help the low-ranked students though. Nanase mentions Hosen would never help them free of charge, even if it's for the good of the class. You see, Nanase took Horikita's offer well. But the problem was Hosen. How would he respond? Nanase just thought it wouldn't work out, and his interest was sparked by a large number of private points. There was really no way to accept this, but he would have to try another way. Some students would be saved, but some students couldn't be saved. This was the reason Horikita wanted the equal contract. Let me have a discussion with Hosen-kun. Horikita decides it would be impossible to do this without him. Nanase understood and decided to call Hosen. She went straight for the entrance of the library and decided to call Hosen. Horikita said to Kiyotaka Hosen's control was bigger than she thought, and asked if the contract was wrong. Kiyotaka added building relationships with a view of the future is not bad, and it was a bigger premise than Sakinagi and Yuen. He then mentioned Ichinose's way too, and compared them, saying they were alike. You're becoming a leader strong enough to compete with the 3 of them. Those words even make me happy to hear, as like Horikita is really starting to find her way after Manabu's graduation of course, and slowly but surely will become on a level as the other 3 leaders. Nanase called him to the entrance. She said Hosen was on the phone and put it on speaker. He said he heard the story. Horikita said she would like to meet him and explain, but he just replied saying he didn't want to see her and laughed. Hosen was not going to negotiate. Nanase was okay to consider it. He asked Nanase what authority she had. I don't want to be killed, but please meet with Horikita senpai once. Like, Nanase saying that's kind of scary. Like, I don't want to be killed like Hosen. Like, goddamn, we saw him hurt Ibuki, like a random person. What would he do to someone if they pissed him off? If you can't get the private points ready, you'll never hear from me again, said Hosen. With that, the call ended. Nanase was happy they haven't given up yet, but was sad knowing they can't have an equal relationship due to Hosen's policy. Nanase then left, wanting to meet at the library tomorrow. Kiyotaka said he had a secret person who would want to work with, but said he would decide on them within the week. A little later around the night, Kiyotaka cooked his dinner from the supermarket, tom yum. It had somewhat of a unique taste, but it wasn't bad. His phone was vibrating on the bed, but he decided not to answer and thought he would call back later. But the phone did not stop vibrating, so he answered. He was slow to answer the phone. It was someone he hadn't heard from since the start of the special exam. Kiyotaka asked if they did the thing what he asked this morning. They said they checked it out and asked if Kiyotaka should say anything before this. I'm grateful, he said. They said according to the clerk Kiyotaka made them check out, there have only been 1 sale since April of this year, saying a certain product does not seem to sell well compared to the others. But it was a freshman who tried to buy it. They were concerned about who it was. They seemed to be talking about an item a freshman bought. The one telling the story was Kay, my baby girl making her first proper appearance within the volume and almost 200 pages too. Kiyotaka said he didn't expect that person to be involved with this and asked Kay what prompted the student to return the item. Kay didn't, but said a girl stopped him. She didn't know the name of the girl though. This would be more useful, Kiyotaka thought. He then wanted to change the topic. He mentioned that Kay found a partner for the exam, that being Class 1B Shiozaki. He then asked how Kay's study was doing, to where she said it wasn't going too good, and mentioned that she heard Kiyotaka hadn't found a partner yet. Kay mentioned Kiyotaka wasn't showing up to the class group studies, to where he replied saying if he did, would she be able to study harder. Kay replied saying she could show her boyfriend she was working as hard as she can. He asked Kay if she can come tomorrow at 6. He had to consider the amount of time before he had meeting nanase. She asked if she could come along with them, to where Kiyotaka said it's not about playing, but about studying. What? Replied Kay. To where Kiyotaka said he would teach her what to study tomorrow. She asked if he was worried. Kay sounded happy. Kiyotaka said it was natural as they just started dating and it would be bad if one of them dropped out. Oh, that's right. That's true. Well, I can't help it. With those words, Kay was even more motivated than ever. After that, they didn't talk about the exam and just chat for a while. Now in the morning, there had been close to 81 pairs who decided on partners. Everyone had been narrowing down their choices. That included the second year Class D. There were still good cards to play within Class D though, including Horikita, Michan, Keisei, and even Matsushita. The thing is, even though some people found a partner, it didn't mean they were safe. You had to study to survive. Most students would start study only after finding their partners. When in class, Horikita calls out to the Giga Chat, Konji. It seems you haven't found a partner yet, Konji-kun. What's wrong with that, he replied. And whoever he teams with, even someone like Ike, he would get somewhere close to 400 points. I love the way like she had to throw in Ike's name. Like, that's something I would do, and I didn't even put that, and I didn't even think of it. Like, goddamn, Horikita is a genius. Kiyotaka wanted to use Konji as one of his cards, but that wouldn't be possible considering his nature. Rita asked if she could decide on his partner. He said it was a good deal, but he refuses, and added he didn't want her to bother looking for a partner. He'd rather work alone and not cooperate with anyone. Horikita added he couldn't work like this forever. You see, Horikita was thinking about the future of the class as a whole. But you couldn't force Konji. She knew this fact and was depressed. Konji was serious about getting enough points and moving class. If he was to do this, then Class D would lose one of their most important trump cards. Horikita said she wouldn't give up. It's a good thing to be motivated, but it won't be enough to persuade Konji. Now in the library, Kiyotaka happened to see a different atmosphere than the other day. There were many students, in fact, first and second years all gathered here. Kiyotaka then saw Hiro and approached her. She then waved and said she saved a seat for him. The table was the same as before, but there was no sign of nanase. Kiyotaka sent multiple messages and he didn't know if she read them. Soon after, nanase, who looked like she'd been in a hurry, showed up. She approached him. It looked like she was short of breath. She said she was trying to negotiate to bring Hosen along, but there's no sign of him being there, meaning it probably didn't work. No matter what nanase did, the final decision was always Hosen's. It seems we have to forcibly meet him then, Horikita added. This was the only way to do things at this point. Nanase had an idea and wanted them to hear it out. That being, she would like to compete with Hosen's position as leader of Class D, and to do this she would need the help of a member of Class 2D. Something completely unexpected. Even I wouldn't expect something like this, like bro, Hosen would kill her. She said many people in the class disagree with Hosen's way and she gave a proposal to 7 students within the class, and they agreed. It was many students with low academic ability, but 3 of them had a grade of B. Horikita thought for a bit and asked if it was bad if Hosen found out, but Nanase wasn't concerned, she said. It was a proposal that was risky and dangerous. Nanase did not want to lose the trust she had with Kiyotaka and Horikita. And how would Horikita respond? She added that she wanted to work with Class 1D, but there are other ways to do it than people getting hurt. If Hosen came over to their side, all things would be solved. Horikita would rather have Class 1D on one side rather than split in 2. It was a dangerous bet, and if it fails, neither Class Ds would work together again. Nanase understood what Horikita was saying. There was no need for a risky strategy. Nanase added she was right about meeting them today. It turns out everything she had been saying was all a test, and she was testing what Horikita would do in general. If she was to neglect the future of their class, she would fail, but Horikita chose to look forward in the future for both classes. They made a deal to meet Hosen on Sunday at the karaoke bar at the mall. They would go closer to the night, to avoid the risk of being seen. When the conversation seemed like it was getting somewhere, Horikita's phone rang. It seemed the class session for studying wasn't going to plan. It was already 5:30. Horikita asked Nanase to send her details to her phone. She said sure, and with that, Horikita lightly bowed to Nanase and quickly left the library. Horikita-senpai's quite the busy person, huh? Kiyotaka replied saying this was needed as she had to bring the class together. Kiyotaka asked how she would call Hosen. She said it wasn't a concern and asked Kiyotaka if he could tell her about himself. About me? Kiyotaka questioned. The sun outside started to set. The sky turned orange. Nanase said Horikita was the class leader, but it didn't seem like this to Kiyotaka. She thought they could be dating, but that wasn't the case. And asked what kind of person he was. He didn't answer the question. Nanase put her arms on the desk and stared into his eyes. Would you please answer me, she said. And added she thinks Kiyotaka is an evil and filthy person. A very intense word, Kiyotaka thought. Nanase was very straightforward as she stared into his eyes. Kiyotaka thought there was no reason she would think he's an evil person due to her little contact with him. It must have been a compatibility issue. That may have been the reason she thought he was filthy. Nanase added as long as she's in contact with him like this, then Kiyotaka looks like a normal person. Kiyotaka asked if she saw him as an unusual person. She denied, but was that really the truth? They had met a total of 4 times, and each time they met, she seemed to give a strange gaze to him. I'm sorry, I forgot what I wanted to ask. Anyways, the important thing now is whether we could work with each other or not. But the fact how she changes the topic so quick, I find this kind of scary, but it really makes you wonder how much of Nanase we have to learn. Kiyotaka mentioned if they are 800 class points after enrollments, then it's calculated 240k points. It would seem this year's freshmen had a different starting line to those of last year. Kiyotaka mentioned they were given 1,000 at the start of last year. Nanase asked if they only lost 200 in their first month. Like, damn. Imagine if they actually lost 200 in their first month and they didn't actually manage to lose all their points in the first one. Like, Jesus. She explained Class A and B also had 800 points as of now. and talked about the rules to do with class points. Kiyotaka saw Nanase had an idea on her face for a moment, as if she came up with something, but it soon disappeared. He decided he would refrain from pursuing it. Right before Nanase left, he asked if she heard about protection points. She had not. Then Kiyotaka explained them. She asked why he was telling her, to where Kiyotaka said he got info from her, so he thought he would give some back. After saying that, Nanase left. He wanted to see if he could make good use of her skill to make a good story. Now back at his room before 6 PM, the doorbell rang. It was Kei in her school uniform. They decided to get started straight away. Kei asked if there's anything more, but Kiyotaka knew they didn't have much time to waste. He then said they could go on more dates afterwards. She agreed. He tested Kei on her strengths and weaknesses, getting her to do some tests. After 50 minutes, Kei fell at her desk. It was like she was going to die. I'm so tired, Kei said. Kiyotaka then looked at the sheets. He said he decided she wouldn't have to attend Hirata's study session starting tomorrow. At her current level, she'll be able to score 200, and Shimasaki, her partner, would score around 350 points, giving him a pass mark of 550, but he wanted Kei to get around 300 and asked her to keep her studies up. This was so she wouldn't get expelled. She said she was quite scared, but Kiyotaka said if she studied this effectively, then she could become one of the top 10 students in Class D. She then asked Kiyotaka a question, that being if his academic ability is really of that of C. He told her it was not. So Kei asked why he's hiding his abilities. The answer is usual, he didn't want to stand out. She asked what he would get if he went serious, but Kiyotaka replied saying he didn't know. Tell me, she said, pushing his shoulder a lot while smiling. He said if Kei comes to studying tomorrow, he'll answer. Kei then asked how many points he wanted to get exactly. The answer was 400, and in Kiyotaka's head, exactly 400. She asked if he could do it, and Kiyotaka said he could, and there had been no problems since the first exam he couldn't solve. Kiyotaka didn't know how hard this exam would be, but he saw it as the perfect opportunity to test his learning capability from the white room. I decided to study a little more. Kei put her hand on the floor and looked at Kiyotaka face to face, asking what to do next. An hour and a bit later, he was studying while teaching Kei. Mentioned Kei knows the basics of each subject, so it's not hard to teach her. But Kei had to study a little bit more, considering how much she missed for being bullied in middle school. Huh? Kei said. What's wrong? Asked Kiyotaka. She gazed at the floor. Kiyotaka thought she was staring at the floor for no reason, but her hand reached out towards his. She then lifts up her hand in front of Kiyotaka. There was a long piece of red hair. This is a girl's hair, isn't it? Oh my god, my boy Kiyo has been caught. He got busted, yo. He's gonna have to pull a miracle to get out of this one. Kei's expression hardened and looked at Kiyotaka like a demon. Red hair and long hair. No matter how you look at it, it's a girl's hair, she yelled. Kiyotaka then remembered Ichika came to his room the other day. She asked who he brought to his room. He thought about lying, but at this point she wouldn't believe him. Are you jealous, he asked? Is it bad, said Kei, adding she's his girlfriend after all. Kiyotaka then learned whenever a girl comes to his room, he would clean it thoroughly. But it didn't end there. His doorbell then rang and he went to check who it was. He looked at the monitor and it was Ichika who was waving. Kei gripped the red hair in her hand and even tighter than before. It was like she was trying to solve a mystery. Red hair and a strange woman, Before Kiyotaka pressed the button to talk, Kei extended her hand and pressed the button herself. Yes, she yelled, and Ichika was even shocked. Isn't this ayanokoji senpai's room? Kiyotaka forcibly pulled away Kei's finger and asked what he could do for her. Ichika asked if someone was there and if she could come back later. She had come because she had lost something important to her. Kei looked back and Kiyotaka gestured her to return to the desk. She wanted to be sure it was Ichi's hair. Kiyotaka said she could come in and release the auto lock. She asked if he was sure, as the student inside may be mad if she entered. Oh my god, Kei said. Hearing those words, she was about to explode. She looked at the extra pair of shoes at his doorstep. There's another girl here, she said. Girl, eh? He questioned, and Ichika laughs. She said she'd forgotten something in his room, that being a hairband. She goes in Kiyotaka's room and says hello to Kei. Nice to meet you, Kei replies, having a grumpy face obviously. You're a senpai, aren't you? I'd like to know your name. It's Kei. Karuizawa Kei. Damn, best kohai versus like best girl. Like, I don't know how I feel about this show. Kei asked about the relationship between her and Kiyotaka. Wait a second for the answer to that question. You don't mind if I take a look, would you, senpai? Might have left it rolling around here somewhere. As she knelt down, she didn't mind Kei staring at her at all. She then lifted up her buttocks to look under the bed. Ah, senpai, stop looking at my butt, you naughty boy. It was like her tone of voice was made on purpose to piss Kei off more. Ichika then answered the question from Kei, saying Kiyotaka is her personal chef. What? What does that mean? Like, this keeps getting worse and worse for my man. Goddamn. Kei looked at Kiyotaka again as if she didn't understand what Ichika was saying. This time with an even scarier look. Sudo. She's Sudo's partner, and I had to cook for her one time for something. Bruh, I got my man Kiyotaka stuttering now, like, goddamn. Ichika then asked if she could look in the kitchen, as she may have removed it while she was washing up. Kei asked what they were looking for. They answered a hairband. Kei then asked to explain his relationship with Ichika. I told you, I've cooked for her once and that's it, he replied. Hey, that's really it, right? She questioned, but she wasn't buying it. He then grabbed Kei's arm while she was trying to stand up and used his index finger to cover her lips from asking anything else until Ichika leaves. After doing this, Kei stopped asking questions as her face got a bit redder. After a while, Ichika's voice came from the kitchen saying she had found her hairband. Him and Kei went to the kitchen and there she was holding it in her hand. Ichika mentioned it fell under the fridge. She gave a small laugh and said sorry to Kei. Kei said she was sorry and she didn't understand their relationship. Sorry for teasing you, senpai. After saying that, Ichika told Kei to join them when they ate together in his room again. Of course, replied Kei. Now we'll be eating together with Karuizawa senpai. Now then, goodbye. Saying that, Ichika came in like a storm and left like one too. Looks like you know a pretty cute kohai, huh, Kiyotaka? Kiyotaka knew he wasn't shit, and for the time being, studying was over. He had to explain the truth to Kei repeatedly until she was satisfied. It was now Saturday morning. There was no school. Kiyotaka went to the OAA app to check the new partners who were formed. That being 105, nearly 70% already. He decided to head to the mall to expand his possibilities. Naturally, one day it was packed with students. He thought about the white room student and how they would blend into the crowd to follow him. The only way a student would team up with him is asking nanase or asking Kiyotaka directly. But if they were to ask him directly, he wouldn't know. Kiyotaka thought about last year and thought he was similar. He decided to make a character for himself. He'd try and talk more and change his tone as a cheeky student. In the end, he found this tiring and decided to act himself. Could y'all imagine Kiyotaka like that? Just like as a cheeky student and tried talking more? That'd be kind of weird, no? It sounds kind of scary, can't lie. But the person sent for Kiyotaka was a little different, as they would have someone to imitate and blend in without him knowing. As he was leaving the mall, he ran into Sakinaki. Whoa. If it isn't ayanokoji-kun, I see you've been interacting with a lot of the first years recently, she said. Kiyotaka replied, saying he's just helping Horikto with the low-grade students. I see. If they catch a bad first-year student, they'll drop out of the school immediately, showing a little level of consent, but that was not the end. Saying she thought a student was sent for him to drop out. Kiyotaka pretended not showing any expression on his face, but Sakinaki seemed to know about the white room student. Kiyotaka asked her not to worry about it. Why, she asked. The way Kiyotaka said he would take this exam seriously and not worry about him dropping out. Continuing life at the school was his top priority. Well, that's good. If you kept half-assing things, you may have ended up regretting it, she replied. Sakinaki offers Kiyotaka a partner, but he declined, saying if he ends up dropping out, he will come to regret her offer. But again, Kiyotaka says not to worry and he knows how to handle his own problems. Sakinaki replies saying she'll look forward to how he fights from the distance, as well as the day they have their rematch. After that, she bowed her head and walked away. Kiyotaka thought on the way they seemed to gain quite a bit of trust from each other. On the way back from the mall, Kiyotaka heard a voice calling out to him. It was a boy and a girl. The girl seemed to be glancing at him while holding her phone. I am Sakadaka Tsubaki from first year class C. And he's in the same class as me. His name is Riku Utamiya. They asked if he was Kiyotaka ayanokoji. Her screen was not visible, but he could tell the girl was on an OAA app. They asked if they could talk about the exam, and elaborated saying she was in a search for a partner who could help her. Kiyotaka thought this was too much of a coincidence, and it was like she had been waiting for him. He questioned this and thought they were dangerous, or if Tsubaki really needed a partner. He decided he can't just assume someone was dangerous just because they came into contact with him. Tsubaki said the man next to her, Utamiya, already had a partner, but she didn't. But decided to go to a coffee stop rather than standing around. Tsubaki stated she wanted an equal partnership while looking at her nails. Academic ability was a C, just like Kiyotaka's. There wasn't anyone superior or inferior here. Kiyotaka asked why she took so long to decide, as students who already have a grade of C seem to already be partnered. Utamiya seemed to be jammed with words. Tsubaki looked at him and then he naturally looked back, saying he's the one to blame. He said at first Tsubaki didn't consult anyone about finding a partner, and on Friday she got impatient and asked for his help. He mentioned a 5% penalty would have been a problem for Tsubaki. This was the reason she wanted Kiyotaka to be partners. Under normal circumstances, Kiyotaka would have said yes instantly, but considering the rules of the exam and the white room student, this was hard. Kiyotaka asked how many students they asked before him. Utamiya said they lied before about asking others, and he's the first one. He said if he doesn't want to team, he understands and will look for another partner for Tsubaki. Kiyotaka said he decided on a partner who thinks is perfect, and he would talk to him a few times before they can work together. Half of what he said was a lie, but there's no way they could affirm it. Yes, I see. With that, Utamiya glances at Tsubaki with a sorry look. Well, why not? Why are you not going to team with me? Tsubaki would not back down. Utamiya then understood Tsubaki's motive and asked what student they would team up with. Kiyotaka says he could not answer that question, but the student was not in their class. Tsubaki said it was time to go, and it would be bad if they took up any more of Kiyotaka's time. Kiyotaka thanked them for calling out to him, but apologized for not making the immediate decision. The information he had on Tsubaki was just too low. Utamiya gave Kiyotaka a piece of paper with his number on it. He said to call him if he turns down his partner. With that, Tsubaki folded her arms, bowing her head slightly, leaving to find another partner. Sakurako Tsubaki and Yuka Otomiya, huh? I have to remember those names, Kiyotaka said. Kiyotaka said he would regret the decision in the future if he were to partner with a white room student. On the same day, two girls from Class D were walking together. It was Kei and Sato. Sato said sorry for calling her out. Kei said it was okay and she wanted to hang out with her. It was around 11 AM. They decided to go to the school building where there were no other people around. Kei was confused why Sato wanted to do this, and thought she may have figured it out. Kei asked Sato what's wrong. Sato said she had something to ask. Kei said not to hesitate as they were friends. Sato then asked why she broke up with Hirata. Did I not say why? She replied. Her heart started racing as she began to think Sato knew she liked Kiyotaka. Sato then heard the reason, but she said she didn't believe it, and questioned if she was aiming for Hirata's seat in the class. Kei denied this idea, but that did not reach Sato's ears. She then asked the question Kei was waiting for. Karuizara-san, are you dating ayanokoji-kun? What? Responded Kei, giving a delayed response due to the unexpected question. This delay may have been fatal. She could practically see through Sato's mind right now. So how long have you been dating? She asked. No, why? Kei wasn't able to speak properly. She could not admit they were dating. Her words were denied by Sato and she got even madder than before. She could no longer deny it. With this, Sato would find out. When I was aiming for ayanokoji-kun and when I asked you for advice, did you like him before that? Sato asked. Still, Kei could not speak. Sato mentioned the talk from Matsushita saying she broke up with Hirata because she liked Kiyotaka. Sato then uttered more words. Speak honestly, or I will not be able to see Karuizawa as a friend anymore. She was on the verge of crying. Kei looked into Sato's eyes seriously. She couldn't betray her any longer. and asked what she wanted to know. Yeah, it's as you say, I'm dating ayanokoji-kun. Let's go. But I've been waiting for this moment. It really shows like Kate is growing as a person, is able to stand on her own a little bit now. Like she doesn't really need Kiyotaka with her all the time. And if she was in a situation like this before, she would have sort of broken down along with Sato. But love this from Kate. She's really growing on her own. You love to see it. Kate added she knew Sato liked him and she's sorry. Sato asked when they started dating. Her eyes were cold and shallow. Kate wanted to escape his gaze but couldn't. Kate said she didn't know exactly, but it was definitely before her. I see, replied Sato. You're angry, right? Asked Kate. After a short while, Sato pulled her left cheek. Sato said she was convinced with her answer. It was a little price to pay. One more time, Sato asked. Kate decided to extend her cheek again. But even so, the pain Sato suffered was much more than her. Sato then said sorry for hitting her. Kate also apologized for keeping this hidden. I couldn't help it. Ayanokoji-kun just looked so much cooler than Hinata could. Sorry, like this is... I don't know why she said that at the end, I'm not gonna lie. Like, she could have said anything else, but just saying, oh, Ayanokoji-kun look so much cooler than Hinata is the funniest shit ever, I'm not gonna lie. Kate then hugged Sato saying she's really sorry. Kate knew it was hard to love the same person as someone else, especially if they were a friend. We then went to go get tea. After that, we're in chapter 5. It's a pretty overall good chapter from the nanase situation with the 2 class Ds. What was really interesting to see, like nanase negotiating with Horikita, we both got to see Horikita's growth as a person, and she actually went and said, hey yo, I care for your class too. I don't sort of want it to be messed up just because of one little exam, and I want to work together from now on. But, you know, that was all a weird thing, fake thing from nanase. And then we also have the nanase thing where she's just like looking into Kiyotaka's eyes every now and then, and someone's just like, who are you, nanase? What are you thinking? Like, who really are you, yo? That's what I want to know. Great though, seeing Kei's growth too, like I said before, can't wait to see more of it. Just dope. With that, let's move on to the final chapter, chapter 6. Now after 8:30 PM on a Sunday, the day came for a discussion with Nanase and Hosen. Today would be decided if both class Ds would work together. Kiyotaka knew he had to move faster to find a trustworthy partner. He would attend a session with Horikita and Sudo. Sudo must have some desire to be with her, but the main reason is probably to protect her from Hosen. No matter how many times Sudo asked, she wouldn't let him come, but due to Kiyotaka's words, she accepted. Kiyotaka allowed this as he would let Sudo move on his behalf, even if he doesn't do anything. He was sure Sudo was able to handle it. When in the lobby, he spoke to Sudo and thought he changed a lot. His laziness was reduced and he seemed to be studying a lot. You seem to enjoy studying, asked Kiyotaka. What Sudo said is a lot of fun, and when he gets something right, Horikita praises him. Sudo then says to Kiyotaka if he confessed at this stage, Horikita would say yes. Kiyotaka didn't know what to respond. Sudo then spoke more, saying it would be impossible, and he knows Horikita isn't the type of person who would fall in love. Therefore, he doesn't know how high the chances would be. Sudo, who was standing still, was now floating and left the place to calm down. They moved on soon after. Soon the elevator arrived on the first floor and Sudo took a deep breath. Horikita showed a slightly confused face. But then Sudo said he was going to take another deep breath and to wait a bit. What is Sudo-kun doing? Asked Horikita. It seems he's taking a deep breath, replied Kiyotaka. Horikita again looked confused but returned to her usual expression. The meeting place was the karaoke bar in the mall. It was the perfect place for a medium to avoid eavesdropping. The time is now 9 o'clock, though now 30 minutes until the appointed time. Kiyotaka then sent a message to Nanase saying they arrived. Received a reply saying to meet at the scheduled time. While waiting, they ordered a drink and some potato fries. Sudo asked why didn't they sing, but was shot down immediately by the two. Soon after, Nanase and Hosen arrived. Horikita said she thought they would arrive later. Hosen said if he decides to go somewhere, then he will go. He sat down comfortably and showed a big body figure. It didn't seem like a first year. So Nanase explained she wants our class to help yours, Hosen said. Horikita replied saying it was different, saying there was no top or bottom, they wanted to join hands. An equal relationship to be exact. Let's say that a lot of people obey me with just a single order, replied Hosen. He then pierced his ears with his left finger. Then with his little finger up, Horikita turned to him and says if he could stop it. Her fist was trembling on her knee without turning her eyes away from him. Sudo keeps his advice and endorses this. The first time Nanase spoke, saying Horikita has nothing to worry about. Are you the leader of Class D, or is it me? Hosen asked Nanase. Hosen then said there wouldn't be an equal relationship. This was going to be a one-way negotiation. Do you think I'll give you money if I ask for your help? Asked Horikita. She wasn't backing down. Hosen said he would listen, asked Nanase to order water. Horikita again said she wouldn't give any money in return for help. Hosen decided there was no point in being here and decided to stand up. Nanase stopped her and saying he should listen to Horikita's story. She added that the senpais are desperate to protect their class and to reconsider. Nanase, you stupid! Hosen yelled. Carried on saying the negotiation is not happening and to leave these rats alone. Horikita then said if Hosen was to turn all of his second years into enemies, there'd be a possibility he would fall into an unforeseen situation he could not get out of. Hosen then asked a question, that being if Horikita really thought anyone in the school was ready to deal with him. He then talked about protection points. Horikita was a little surprised, but said this was one of the reasons to build a relationship of trust from this stage. Hosen listened to this and said he still wanted something in return. I'm sorry. You got your wisdom together by saying this, but I'm not going to accept this relationship, replied Hosen. When Nanase and Horikita both spat the words out, Jesus Christ, as a reply. Like, I don't know if that's the translation, but it says Jesus Christ, so like, I don't know, I guess it does, huh? Sudo then tried to throw a punch at him, but Horikita held him back, saying he hasn't left the negotiation table yet. Horikita asked Hosen what he wanted in return for equal relationship. His answer? 1 million private points right now, and if they're in trouble in the future, he would happily pay it back in full. Hosen then grabbed Horikita's arm. Oi, don't hurt the woman, said Sudo. Horikita told him to calm down. Hosen wouldn't hold back, even if it was a woman. He then says if Sudo beats him in a fight, he'll go through with the deal. Horikita told him not to get provoked and said it was okay. If Sudo wins, Hosen will partner with them. But Horikita wasn't having it, and uttered the words, negotiation breakdown, way of saying they were withdrawing. He then ungripped Horikita's hand and sat down again. But he would then grab a cup on the table and splash water all over Horikita's face. You finally said it. That's right. Ha ha ha. Yes. Yes, said Hosen. Kiyotaka was ready to get out of his seat so he could get close to a wall, but the situation was already out of hand. Sudo held a fist out. He who endured all of this was at his limit. He was going to hit Hosen. Horikita then yelled, stop it. No one could blame Sudo. Hosen was making a fool out of Horikita. She once again told Sudo not to be provoked. Horikita then took her gaze off Hosen. Let's go home. Yeah, let's go. Surprisingly, it was Sudo who asked Horikita to go back. Nanase and Hosen were ready to leave too. I thought Horikita Senpai's dog was going to come at me for revenge, said Hosen. But they would not take the bait. They left the karaoke shop and Hosen and Nanase were still following. Horikita asked if it was okay to break down negotiations. Hosen said it was. As long as he kept making demands, it wouldn't change. Hosen and Horikita began to have a one-sided talk. Horikita said she would score 501 points with any combination. Hosen then said there's no such way to win unless you do it with violence. As he held out a fist, laughing. Dominance through violence, he added. Then stopped at a divided road and began to split apart a little, and then began to walk again. Horikita would not show a broken expression until the last minute. Wait, it was Hosen. You still have something to say? Asked Horikita. He then said he would think about what she said. At the last possible moment, Hosen seemed to negotiate. What do you mean? Asked Horikita. Hosen saying it's only natural to negotiate until the very last moment in order to gain advantage. In basic terms, he was trying to use a tactic to force Horikita to give in, but Horikita was too strong. When you're saying you'll participate in an equal partnership between our classes, she asked. He then said he still had time and wanted to change location. It was 10 PM after all, and they could be spotted on the street. Hosen said anywhere would work, the back of the dorms, or even another place. Horikita couldn't reject this offer. She then said she would give him 10 minutes. He then led them to the back of the first year dorms. Kiyotaka added the location is a lot dimmer than the rest of the dorm surroundings. Well then, Horikita said. Hosen then lifted his arms, then lowered them, and held out 3 fingers, forming the number 3. 3 million points. If you can pay up, then I'll help carry a sorry excuse for a class. Oh, how naive for me to believe you're being serious, said Horikita. Hold it, you think you can just leave now? Hosen then slammed his fist against the wall with clear intent of intimidating the 3. Do you really think your esteemed violence would work on us here? Horikita shook her head, disapproving Hosen, and turned her heel as if she was about to leave. But then, Nanase was standing behind Hosen, turned her face away and stepped back. As if on cue, Hosen starts moving. Suzune! Shouted Sudo, in a panic, rushing to her side and pulling her away. In the next instant, Hosen's foot powerfully swept the area where Horikita had been standing moments before. Horikita finally realized he was being serious, but she couldn't dodge his attack. Seeing this, Sudo blocked Hosen's fist with his own body. Ugh, he shouted. Hosen began to laugh and decided to show them more. That was just in time. I won't spare anyone who threatens to hurt Suzune, said Sudo. But Hosen kept laughing as he attacked him. What the hell was going on in this guy's head, said Horikita. You couldn't blame her for being shaken. Horikita-senpai, I wonder if the score has changed anything from before. Or has Nanase been spectating with a cold expression? She mentioned a few first years were called into the student council year and given an explanation by Nagumo. He said from this year onwards the school will become more liberal, meaning in one way or another, a certain degree of violence will be allowed. As Horikita spoke to Nanase, the battle between Hosen and Sudo continued. He pushed Sudo against the wall and grabbed him by the collar, forcing Sudo to lose the contact with the ground. Despite being cornered, Sudo grabs onto Hosen's arms and kicks him in the knees with considerable force. Hosen's body began to waver slightly. Sudo then freed himself, but the next instant was kicked by him. Sudo couldn't respond in time, resulted in him taking a full blow. His body flew to the wall behind him and under heavy impact, but still, Sudo showed no hint of fear. There was a very large gap between the two. You could tell Sudo fought in countless brawls, however Hosen was on another level. His humongous body and his muscular arms, one couldn't believe he was a first year. Even Yuan sensed something like this. No normal human can win head-on against someone with such a body, were Yuan's true thoughts. Despite all of this, Sudo will not go down so easily. After all, his physical ability is second to none in the second grade. It would only be a matter of time before he loses to Hosen. He swings big fists at Sudo from left to right. Sudo desperately tried to search for an opening but was unable to do anything. The very moment Sudo switches from offense to defense, it will be the end. This isn't doing any good, yelled Horikita, but those words will not reach Hosen. But they reached Sudo. The voice came from the person he was trying to protect. When he heard it, he gave a battle cry. He lunged at Hosen, bearing full intention to fight him until his last breath. Yo, do you want to fight with pure strength? Hosen then took Sudo's punch from the front and lifted his body as he laughed. He put Sudo against the wall once more. Bullshit, he yelled. Hey Sudo, would you look at Horikita's face? She's glaring daggers at you. When Sudo heard these words, he realized he lost his cool, and had been absent-minded, just brawling with Hosen. Of course, Horik didn't want Suda to fight so aggressively, but you couldn't blame him. She just had a worried look over her face while she wondered what to do. While looking at Horik, she told Suda to watch out, but it was already too late. He didn't even have enough time to see Hosen's ferocious smile. Suda's cheek then received such a violent impact it plunged into his face. It was an attack that Suda's body has never experienced before. Taken head-on, Suda's body flew backwards before falling on the ground, with no movements. Suda, who's in the brink of fainting from the merciless pain, could not even make a sound. Hosen set up the strap to catch Suda off guard and beat him. After all, watching all of this, Kiyotaka wondered what type of person Hosen really was. What was he thinking? What was his purpose for coming today? Things like that. He ran through all the events of what led to now and kept thinking about these things. What Hosen achieved once this all ends, Kiyotaka thought. Now that the clingy bodyguard is down, who's next, he questioned. The student council said fighting is allowed to a certain extent, but that's only a certain extent. And after crossing that line, it'd be considered as problematic behavior. Rikta then said she would stop him, and took a fighting stance. Hosen was ready. Without warning, he extended his enormous arm. Rikta swiftly dodges and counterattacks, aiming for his jaw. However, the winner and loser of this battle will be decided in an instant. Hosen then grabbed Horikta's hand with minimal effort. Raising his other hand, he swings down, slapping Horikta in the face. Rikta tried her best to dodge, but took the slap without being able to put up a fraction of defense. Fortunately, the slap was much lighter than Sudo's near-fatal blow, and Horikta was able to cushion her fall before hitting the ground. Sudo gritted his teeth and tried to stand up, but it was clear his legs were weak. Couldn't take a step. Hey Horikta, best hurry up and accept my proposal. He then smiles and says 5 million. Horikta tells Kiyotaka to call for a teacher quick. At this point, such a situation can only be calmed down by adult intervention. Hosen kicks Suda away and shifts his gaze to Kiyotaka. Quick, run ayanokoji, run. Kiyotaka then questioned what he was trying to do in his head. Horikta, I'll give you one last chance, Hosen said. Last chance, he replied? Either obey my orders or start preparing points immediately, or I'll kill ayanokoji right here. After saying that, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something, but due to the dim lighting, it was hard to see what it was for a moment. Kiyotaka then did. It was obvious. A sharp object. It was a knife, and they all want to be exact. If you refuse my request, then I'll stick this into ayanokoji's body. With a knife in his hand, he walked towards Kiyotaka. Nanase then got in the way, but he told her to move it. Everything from the beginning was made to lead them here today. Rikta was shocked by this fact. I still don't see why ayanokoji-senpai needs to be targeted like this. He has nothing to do with this at all, said Nanase. She was then slapped away by Hosen, similar to that of Horikta. The scene of Nanase being slapped played throughout Kiyotaka's head and his eyes in this very moment. He then found his answer. I'm coming for you, ayanokoji, said Hosen. Ayanokoji-kun, yelled Horikta. In most situations, people would run away. You see, Kiyotaka wasn't like normal people. He was different. He then rushed towards Hosen. Everybody else probably thought he lost his mind. But Kiyotaka saw something else no one else did. What Hosen's blade was aiming for. It wasn't him. It was targeting his own body. The knife got closer and closer. Kiyotaka didn't try and catch Hosen's arm nor dodge. Instead, he let it stab directly into his palm. Oh my god. Do you all see this panel? This is top 3 Kiyotaka moments. This is the chills. Jesus. Chills. A what? Hosen of course didn't expect him to catch the knife. The confident smile I saw from Hosen was nowhere to be seen. Hosen was aiming for his body swinging down, but Kiyotaka was able to stop it. Ayanokoji, you piece of shit. This knife, to be precise, this fruit knife, is the one I bought, isn't that right? Said Kiyotaka. What are you talking about? Asked Hosen. What Hosen really wanted to do was get the knife and stab it into his thigh, then use the knife as evidence to get Kiyotaka expelled. Kiyotaka knew all of this. Just by seeing the way Hosen was gripping the knife, it was obvious his grip wasn't intended for attacking an opponent. Huh. Even though you knew everything, you actually came over to get yourself stabbed. Are you out of your mind? He said to Kiyotaka. It was the best way to stop you altogether, Kiyotaka replied. Kiyotaka mentioned this task must be similar to a special exam, as a select few first-year students were called out. And the details for this task, if we take Nanase's words into account, should be something along the lines of expel ayanokoji from the school. Kiyotaka then explained all his actions to decipher this. Hosen said he heard Kiyotaka wasn't an ordinary guy, but never really felt any extraordinariness out of him, and added to be bluntly honest, he had been looking down on him all this time. He then asked how he knew about the knife, where Kiyotaka said he had someone background search a knife going back to when Kei was in the store. Hosen then wanted to pull his hand away, so Kiyotaka tightened his grip and took control of his fist even harder. What are you? After sensing Kiyotaka's strength, his confidence was completely shattered. You should be thinking about what to do next, you know. Even though this knife is mine, you're the one who ultimately stabbed me with it, Kiyotaka said. He said to Hosen he should come up with a reasonable excuse, otherwise he'll be expelled. In addition to Kiyotaka's fingerprints, Hosen's were there too, and showing you'd been stabbed, really couldn't doubt Kiyotaka. So you've seen through it all up until here, no wonder you did such a thing. Saying that, Hosen gave a glare and forcibly let go of his grip on the knife. Kiyotaka's palm, only the small knife was left behind. Rikta and Suda took this opportunity to catch their breaths and slowly stand up. Are you okay, ayanokoji-kun? Ayanokoji? Don't worry. They were worried, but of course their thoughts would be in a haze. Hosen asked how much info he really knows, and asked if Nanase spilled anything. Kiyotaka explained it all, saying it started when he shopped with Ichika, buying the knife and the specific fruit knife to be exact. The day when suspicion started was there on Friday when Ichika came to Kiyotaka saying she forgot her hairband. But this was all a farce to steal the knife from him. The blood from Kiyotaka's injury splattered all over Hosen's clothes. He no longer had any escape route. Kiyotaka said he had 2 conditions. One being to work with Horikita in an equal relationship. To obey you or otherwise face expulsion. And then, what's the other condition? That being to team up with Kiyotaka in the exam. There are many reasons for this, but I guess one you could say was the main possibility was Hosen was not part of the White Room. Kiyotaka didn't know for sure, but he knew him and Yua know each other, and he knew a lot of other things about Hosen. So for now, he knew Hosen was trustworthy. Incredible. Really fucking incredible, ayanokoji senpai. This is the first time I met someone who makes my blood boil so much. Just defeating you by force won't be enough for me anymore. I'm going to fuck you over until you're broken inside and out. So just you wait. Hosen uttered those words, but wasn't able to do anything. All of a sudden, nanase said she had one more thing to say. Suit yourself, said Hosen. Horikita, who's usually cool and calm, was not calm at all right now. If they were to pull out the knife poorly, then a lot of blood could spill out. Suda said he's unscathed compared to Kiyotaka. Oh, I'm fine too, replied Kiyotaka. Suda walked next to him with a distorted face. He saw the sight of Kiyotaka's left hand. How could you stay calm in such a state, he asked. I don't know, replied Kiyotaka, and added he wondered why. Suda asked why he didn't fight back, as he's so strong. Kiyotaka said he couldn't and just took the knife by force. I didn't see it that way, he replied. Horikita then called Chabashira. Could you tell me something, ayanokoji senpai? Asked Nanase, asking if his aim was to let Hosen stab him. He replied in a polite tone despite his injury. She asked if all the negotiating was acting, to where Kiyotaka said no and he just wanted to help Horikita out. But getting Hosen as his partner was his top priority. She then told Kiyotaka something, the reason they targeted him. If anyone is able to make Kiyotaka ayanokoji drop out, then that person will be paid 20 million private points. Yes, 20 million, enough to change class. In other words, a golden ticket to success at the school. Rita asked who would put on such a special exam. Nanase then became quiet after that question. For the time being, I told you what I needed to tell you. Ayanokoji senpai should be worried about all the first year classes except ours, Nanase said. She cooperated with Hosen knowing it'd be good for class 1D, and felt Kiyotaka wasn't the right person to drop out the school. Soon after, Nanase bowed her head and left. And with that, we end chapter 6. What is insane? We having knife fights in class with Elite now. Like, obviously, when volume 7 happened, I was just like, oh, now we're getting fights. And then now we're getting like full-on fights with knives and shit where like lives are almost at stake. And another thing what's cool, we have a cool plot now of a bounty on Kiyotaka of 20 million private points. He can't trust anyone in the first year now, I guess, besides from that one class. This is so wild, and there's so much more happening in the second year, what I can't wait to get into. Kiyotaka is just on another level, as you can see. He let this stab into his hand. I really want to see this animated, but I feel like that's a while away. It's something I've been waiting for ages to cover, but that said, let's move on to the epilogue. On Monday the following day, Nanase and Horikita had a discussion and succeeded in establishing an equal cooperative relationship. And on Tuesday, all 157 pairs were decided. Country did not show any willingness to cooperate, but when Nanase asked to become his partner, he accepted it easily. I guess Country just likes cute girls, huh? Kiyotaka's left hand was deeply injured and many students were surprised. He was able to trick them using Chabashira and Mashima-sensei's lie, and he was able to take the exam. There's no evidence of the White Room students' existence, and even Kiyotaka wondered if it was true. Today was May 1st, and the time would come to know the results of the special exam. The results would be announced in the tablets. You could see Horikita's gaze directed at him. There's no doubt this exam was the highest difficulty ever, in terms of getting a high score. Horikita's best subject is mathematics, which she designated a match with Kiyotaka. The results were then up. The lowest score was 579 points. The lowest ability students seemed to succeed. Even Ike and Sato got more than 250 points with ease. He checked Horikita's score in maths, and displayed them from highest to lowest. Horikita 87, Keisei 84, followed by the 80s and so on. The class was full of joy, but Kiyotaka's sea gradually turned into a buzz as people were whispering at each other. Chabashira-sensei and all the people noticed this fact, all looked at Kiyotaka. If you look at the name above Horikita, it was Kiyotaka. A perfect score, someone yelled. No matter what subject anyone looked for, there were no students in any class who scored more than 90 points, except one, math. Kiyotaka had to be prepared to answer all these questions. It was the end of the day and Kiyotaka had been called out of class by Horikita. I'm not making excuses. I did what I could and I got a satisfactory score. You don't want a rematch, he asked Horikita. Then she said she couldn't even understand the last question. It was on a different level. It was like a university question. Horikita sighed strongly and looks at Kiyotaka with a glistening eye. She didn't want to admit it. Two things happened in a row. She had no choice to admit defeat. If I lose any more, my pride will be hurt even more, she added. Chabashira then asked for Kiyotaka. Horikita then left and went home. She said Shikisha wanted to see him. A while after, now in the drawing room was Tsukishido. He asked Kiyotaka if he found the White Room student's identity. Kiyotaka said he did not. Tsukishido said it was pretty easy, but Kiyotaka responded saying he wasn't sure. This situation, at least. I see. That child was able to hide it well, Tsukishido added. Kiyotaka said he didn't feel any sign of coming into contact with the student. He then asked if something happened to Tsukishido. What the hell are you talking about, he replied. It's already made. Didn't you say you wanted to settle this in April, replied Kiyotaka. Tsukishido said he didn't have to be impatient, and the grace period he gave him was just a little longer than he thought. I don't think there were any white room students in the first year, at least I'm tempted to think so. He said it would be dangerous if the student just asked Kiyotaka, so you have them act at the next special exam. It's going to take a while, maybe so. But he warned Kiyotaka to watch out, saying the white room student are beginning to act on their own without his instructions. Kiyotaka wondered if the white room student had a good relationship with Shikisha and questioned if he could work together to get rid of him. But thought Shikisha could have been lying. It was a 50-50. The more time he wastes trying to remove the white room's best work, the more jealousy and hatred he have for you. It's just horrible to imagine what you're going to do to convince him. With that, he leaves, and a serious piece of advice from Shikisha was taken as a joke. Special examinations overall rankings. First place, Class 2A, 725 points. Second, Class 2C, 673 points. Third, Class 2D, 640 points. Fourth, Class 2B, 621 points. Damn, so Class B came fourth. What's kind of wild, I guess Ichinose's approach of getting all the low rank students didn't really work well in her favor. Class points as of May 1st. Class 2A, led by Sakinagi Adasu, 1,169. Class 2B, led by Ryuen Kakaru, 565. Class 2C, led by Ichinose Hanami, 539. Class 2D, led by Horikita Suzune, 283 points. Meaning, the new Class B is Ryuen Kakaru's class, which is wild, huh? Ryuen really went up in here, but I guess Ichinose, working with the lower ranked students, really costed her. Now Ryuen's Class B, so it's gonna be really interesting to see how stuff plays out from here. Can't really wait, honestly. Great volume overall, and I am so tired after recording this. I'm not gonna lie, it's like 7 a.m. or like 8 a.m. after recording this. Let's hope your boy gets the video out soon while he's saying this, but the next one might come a little bit later because your boy has uni exams, like your boy is a student still, so I have to work on my uni assignments and stuff, so expect the next one in a little bit of a longer wait, but hopefully not too long, so bear with me. We also have Mushoku Tensei coming up. I'm gonna start doing that soon, so you guys will get the content, but like I guess you guys are gonna have to wait a few weeks, sadly. But maybe if we hit a certain like goal, we hit 1k likes, then your boy try and get out as soon as possible. Dope volume though. I love getting the introduction of the Kohais, and just everything with this in this volume is so good. From the Kiyotaka stab, was honestly a top 10 moment. Phenomenal. Honestly phenomenal. If you guys haven't already, appreciate the like and sub. Your boy is trying to get to 10k. If we reach 7k from this video, I'd be amazed, but I thought it was gonna happen. So any subs your boy would appreciate. If you guys want to support me on Patreon, the link is down below. Join the Discord, we can talk there. Follow me on Twitter, I always give you guys updates there. And I'll see you next time in the next video. Sensei, out.